Okay, you see, right here you're going to have a nice calcification. Oh, okay. Okay, you're going to have a nice calcification right here on the side of the foot, which is going to reflex to the thyroid. We're talking about suppressed genetic anger. Usually they're passed down in families. Of course, the shoes that women wear don't help them any either, I might add. But if we can, oftentimes you'll find that they're quite numb. I mean, you can press on them and you don't get a lot of pain unless they're in an advanced state. But as you start to dissolve that calcification, maybe sometimes you can even get in there with an elbow. If you can get them on their back, you can get an elbow in there good. You can have some real good crunches and those bunions will just dissolve right away. And you'll see with bunions what happens as a result of the calcification. The toes will be kind of malformed. They'll be pushing inward rather than straight as they should be because they can't get that way because of the calcification. But that will change too as you dissolve. Anybody who wants to get a real close look at Wendy's bunions, come on up here. Right here. Yeah, you can hold right on the bunion or get up underneath it. Like, let's see. Okay.
Remember about Reggie and her bunion and being foot model and all that? About that?
No, I forget.
Oh, okay. Thank you. We had a friend back in the States about 5 years ago, and she came to the instructor seminars, and she was a foot model. Her feet, if you ever bought any in the States at any rate, any of the Yves Saint Laurent shoes, they're modeled on her foot. She was a foot model, and she had a bunion on one of her feet, and it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and she and her husband were getting a little bit concerned about this because if the bunion got any bigger, she was going to be out of work. So they came in, we're doing the instructor seminars. That wasn't actually the reason they took the courses, but it was sort of a little side benefit because they went back home and she had this great big bunion. It was actually up on top of the foot, more or less sticking straight up like a little mound. And they went back home and worked on it, and they called us up about a week or two after the seminar, and they were really, really ecstatic because the bunion had just totally melted away when she hit this one thought pattern, completely disappeared, and never came back. So they'll she still got her job there. Okay, questions here?
Okay, we had lots of sharing of bunions at the break. So just a question, what happens if you've had surgery on your bunion and you go back and hold it? What's going to happen? You're going to have to go back through all the anesthesia, the pain of the knife. Yeah. Lots of fun.
Maybe you'll grow a new bunion before you go.
That's right. Cracking, shifting. Yeah, don't in your overzealousness, this should go without saying, but don't in your overzealousness just go out and hold someone's bunion to help them. We got to get the nerve supply there. Like I said, it's often very numb when you because it's very calcified over the thyroid, and you can often dissolve the bunion just by holding the thyroid point. So, don't feel like you need to just get in there with the elbow right away.
Some people will take any excuse to get their hands on someone's bunions. Want to go back to hypothalamus?
Okay. We're talking about the hypothalamus now, and there's a point that I'd like to make about that oftentimes in homosexuals, you will find that the hypothalamus will be about half the normal size. We had an experience with some people, practitioners up in New Zealand, in Kerikeri, and they were working on a homosexual male who had cancer, I believe, throughout his body, and he was really there more because his partner was encouraging him to heal himself. And they held on the hypothalamus, and it never went flat. They held it for the first time, the second time, and that point would never go flat. All the other points would finish, but the hypothalamus would never finish, and he never wanted them to finish. He'd throw them off the point. So obviously for him, there was a choice of not, he didn't have a choice to change, and so you have to keep that in mind. No, he didn't know that about that connection. You often see in iridology, you'll be able to see the lesion in the hypothalamus area or a pigmentation spot in homosexuals. And he didn't understand this, but as the crystal was being dissolved and the reactions were coming up, he was fighting against them. He really didn't want it to change. So
I was just first wondering what of the lesbians, and the second thing is there anything in the hypothalamus that actually affects their desire to be homosexuals? Is there hormonal or something?
It will be the same for either a man or a woman homosexual, as far as I know. I don't know the exact reason for this, but it is something that's been observed, scientifically, that you do have a discrepancy in the size of the hypothalamus. We have had, as John has mentioned a couple of times, I think so far, we have had a number of homosexuals, both gay men and lesbian women, who have, gotten on the program and done a good bit of point holding, and who have found themselves quite suddenly losing, all desire for, their own gender, and all of a sudden finding themselves very much desiring people of the opposite gender. And of course, this has been these are in many cases people that have been homosexual their entire adult life. I mean, these are often people that have identified themselves as homosexual, let's say, from a fairly young age. And all of a sudden, they don't know what to do with themselves anymore because their entire focus of attention has shifted, and it's certainly a confusing thing for a person to go through. But it is something we've seen consistently over the years when we have had homosexual people especially in the longer courses like the instructors courses. What should we do next, Linda? Okay, we can get the thymus down on the foot there with a C clamp. If you could show that, I guess I'm supposed to show it on my own feet for the people in the front row.
If you have a homosexual in your group, should they be made aware of the possibilities of what might happen when the hypothalamus is held?
Did y'all hear the question? Okay, the question was, if you have a homosexual in your point-holding group, should they be made aware of the potential for change here? And I would say, yeah. The thing about it is I would recommend, it's like you're not going into it trying to change anybody. They may or may not be going into it trying to change themselves. That's really their business. But I think you owe it to that person just to let them know a little history. Let them know what has happened, let them know what might happen, and then leave it up to them. It's really up to them what they want to do with that information. It's just like you have somebody with brown eyes and you tell them, well, your eyes might be changing color. Or as we're seeing here now, you find somebody with brown skin and you might let them know that might change as well.
I was doing a little bit of reading, and with the homosexuals and gays, when they were starting to test blood for AIDS, they did find a pattern that there seems to be a specific amount, and I can't remember which hormone it is, but it's in high levels in homosexuals, both in men and women. So there is that chemical findings in the blood. So it does come at birth, and it can be traced from a very, very early age. So that's another way that they can also do that.
Okay, Linda, why don't you, Esther?
We're talking about informing them here in the case where we know that they are homosexuals, because sometimes they don't say. And so just go on holding the point as usual then. Okay?
You really want to encourage anybody that's going to be involved in body electronics to educate themselves. And you're going to want to do everything you can to educate all the people you work with. And that's, on the one hand, that's books and tapes and whatnot, but it's also really spending time with the group, doing seminars, locally. If you're running a point-holding group in an area, do evening talks, do weekend seminars occasionally. I mean, really try to get people exposed to as much information as possible. because it doesn't do people any good if they haven't been exposed to it. So just, as John says, educate, get the information out there so people can do something with it. Okay, Linda, you're going to tell us what you're doing there on the thymus on the foot, or Corey can tell us what we're doing there. I'll do it up here so the people in the front row can see.
It's a bit hard to show for the camera because the way you'd sit, because we need to be sort of facing this way, I think. Mm-hmm. Because it's good to get a C-clamp on this, and what I find best is to be sticking your thumb into the bottom and using the top, your index finger as the finish of the C-clamp. And so it's just like that. It goes straight.
Where is the point approximately?
Okay, go straight down there. It's between the metatarsals on the toes there. You actually go between the second and third there. So between these two toes here, follow down the middle. And it's in there, and you hold the top in between the tendons as well. Okay, so but you wouldn't hold it that way because you wouldn't be able to hold it very long. You'd sit this way and go in there like that.
So you're suggesting thumb on the bottom and, say, middle or index finger on the top?
Yes.
Sounds good.
You can do it the other way if you like, but then you're getting more pressure on the bottom of the foot there.
Where is it typically more sore?
It's typically more sore. I have found people, they get more soreness on the bottom of the foot, but they get a lot of pain coming out of the top after the point has got going. And a lot of burning and electricity comes out of the top, and then they forget that you're even on the bottom.
Okay. How about, while we're at it, Duncan? The point is both. Straight through, top and bottom.
In a C-clamp, just think as though you're going to put a nail straight through there, and just hold there as a... Of course, they might feel like you're putting a nail through there after a while.
Pretty much all of your points, Duncan, that are on the foot, they are going to be on the top as well as the bottom. Straight through from the bottom to the top, and you can get most of those points as a C-clamp on the main body of the foot there. That's that's what Corey was demonstrating on the thyroid, that you could get it in around on the top, around the ball of the foot as well. Why don't you show the heart point that's next to that as well?
The heart's going to be the next toe, so you go down between the third and the fourth. Sorry, the third and the fourth toe. Follow it down there, and it's the same thing. So you'll do a C-clamp there, doing the same thing as the thymus.
Okay. We'll show the heart and thymus points up in the torso, but I think we might as well stick with the feet because we got the camera going there. So what do we got? What level of the scale of emotions would this be? Heart and thymus. Okay, this is going to be the fear level. What do we have below fear? Okay, grief. And what are we going to find at the grief level in terms of the organs and glands and whatnot? Okay, pancreas, adrenals, and what else will tie in there?
Solar plexus.
Okay, now what will be the function of the solar plexus here? Okay, Carol says it's the STO of the adrenals. It's a nerve plexus, so it's going to have a big say in regulating the function of these organs, or glands, the pancreas and the adrenals. So, Linda, why don't you show us where these are? You want to get them on me, or you want to?
What? Do you want the solar plexus first?
Wherever you want to start.
Solar plexus is right in here. No, actually need to be further around there to. Oh, sorry. I need to be further around to get a good grip on it, but it's right in the middle there.
Now, those of you that have foot charts in front of you, what do you notice when you look at the pancreas, adrenals, and solar plexus there? They're all very close together.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're right in that area, right in the middle, how do you know what you're on? You don't. So does it matter?
No.
No, it doesn't really matter. Find the pain and push.
They all reflex to each other. So if you get right in that main area and you've got a good sore spot, you're going to affect probably all three of them anyways. Excuse me? No, lower down. Yeah, you go thymus, heart, and then down through like pancreas, adrenal, solar plexus. Probably the other way around. Probably pancreas, adrenal, solar plexus. Linda? Get the others?
The others? Okay. Well, the pancreas is here in a big area on the inside of the foot. If you see on your foot chart, and you really need a C-clamp. And I have cut my nails, so but it's in like that. And in different people, you'll get the pain in a different position on that whole area.
The thing is, with some people, you might have to go straight in with the thumb if you can't get the pain out of it. But since it covers such a large area, if you just grab the whole area with all of your fingers there and squeeze, you'll get some good pain there, and you might take care of a few other points while you're at it.
You look like you're kind of enjoying that, Corey. I like that. A man who enjoys his work. So you've got as Corey and Linda have suggested, you've got a pretty broad area for the pancreas. So you're going to find that there'll be a number of painful spots in there in a lot of people. So what you want to do is really hunt around and get the one that's really going to do it. Right? Okay, show the adrenals as well.
Well, the adrenals are just outside of that, directly below the solar plexus. And I'm really not in the right position to do that, but it's in here. Yep.
Okay, you can hold these a number of different ways. Some people would come from this side and pull back with a finger like this.
Mm-hmm.
And that will work. That'll work for some people if your hand's strong enough. Other people will prefer to do it from coming back up like this, going into the foot with a thumb, if you can show that position.
You get more body weight that way.
Yeah, you're typically going to get a lot more pressure like that with the thumb. Another factor, of course, is what are you doing with your other hand? That may determine how you're going to hold things. What's the other point you're going to do if you do another point.
Mm. Directly straight in, the angle. Just push in deeply.
It's important for all of us to be realistic about our capabilities to hold points. And it'd be great if we could hold a point with each hand. And if we want to be like Brendan, we can hold like 3 points with 2 hands and make it work. But it's really better to just hold 1 point and hold it really well than to try to get a lot of points.
I've certainly found that the case, because often you need another hand to, after an hour or so, you need the other hand to push onto that to keep the pressure up, to increase the pressure.
That's right. We want to be able to give the person enough, to elicit enough pain. And if we can't do that, we might need to use the other hand, as Linda has suggested. It's much better to have the quality and get 1 point done really well. Because remember how everything's bipolar and things reflex to one another. So if you get 1 point dissolved really well, you're going to get benefits throughout the body.
Look at this entire thing from a hologrammic concept. One of the nature of a hologram is that in any piece of the hologram you have all the information of the whole. So the thing to realize is a lot of us are still very, very linear in our thinking. So we think to ourselves, well, more must be better. If I do more points, it'll be better. If I hold points on 10 different vertebrae during this session, it's going to be better than just staying on one. This is the linear type thinking that most of us fall into. But if we understand that it's a hologram, all you really have to do is work on one area and really do it right, and you're going to get changes everywhere. Like, for example, the other day with Wendy, her entire spine restructured. And yet she only, the point holding for the spine was really all up at the top. And, in huge areas of the back and the tailbone, totally restructured without anybody ever touching those areas. And there's been plenty of other people here that have had all sorts of restructuring in places in the body that have not had any direct point holding or any reflex point holding even. So just consider that you're better off doing one thing really, really well than you are doing many, many things halfway or even 90%. And if you extend this concept further, look at the memories you're going through. Many, many people here are impatient. They want to, they're like, oh, I've been there, done that. I've remembered that one before. So people are looking for something else. But the thing about it is that memory wouldn't be coming up if you didn't need it. If you were really, truly done with that memory, it wouldn't be coming back out of the crystals again as you're having your points held. And I notice a lot of people here, whether it's the person on the table or the people holding points, they don't have the patience to stick with one memory and really get to the bottom of it. And I can assure you, you're far better off, taking an entire point-holding session to really get one memory and really get, dredge up every little detail exhaustively, tediously. You're far better off doing that than you are going halfway through 50 memories or 80% through 100 memories. You're much better off really getting to the bottom of the one memory and sticking with it. And recognize that it takes consistency on everyone's part. The facilitator and the point holders have to really hang in there, but most of all, the person on the table has to really stick with it.
Total non-resistance is going to mean total awareness. So if you have a memory and you can see that memory in your head as vividly as you can see all the people in this room, all the colors, hear all the sounds, then then there's no resistance. But if there's still areas of darkness, if there's still pieces of it that you're not getting, there's still resistance there. So you need to go over it and over it and over it. You get the memory, and we get all excited. Oh, I got that memory! Isn't that great? I finally remembered that after all these years. But there's still so many parts of it that we don't remember. And with those memories are going to come word patterns and feelings. If we're willing to search and if we're willing to allow ourselves to see them and to get to them. And as Doug said, if you need to spend the whole session on one memory so that you can get to a certain area of non-resistance with it, do it. And probably the next time you're on the table, you'll get that same memory and you'll have to go back over it again. And then after you've been doing it for a couple years and that same memory comes up again, you think, what am I doing? I thought I got that. And then when you've been on the program for 9 years and you're still going through your birth, you begin to wonder, or your children's birth, you begin to wonder if you really got any of it in the first place.
Layers of the onion.
It's just like peeling an onion. You just think you got down to the bottom and you find another layer and another layer, and each layer has greater awareness, and you totally can't. It's almost as though you can't believe that feeling was there because you've never felt that before. You never saw that before. But it's such a blessing if you even have a memory to begin with, because remember, a lot of people that's very difficult. So.
We'll get there.
Yes, and also, if you're having trouble getting any memories at all, we're always looking for really significant events, and often you just get flickers of lots of little things, but just pick one thing, and even if it doesn't mean very much, if it's just a scene or whatever it is, just go with that and really go into it. Don't just jump from one thing to another. Often we're looking for great big things, but first you have to start with the small things, and it's just a matter of encompassing that and looking for why that's there and what's underneath it. I know certainly for myself I was always looking for the big things and kept thinking, oh no, that's not anything, give me some big stuff.
The simple things in life will set you free.
Yep, that's it.
Jen? Well, that's service.
I have to go up.
Probably everyone else has noticed this, and I don't know if it's been mentioned, but when someone is thinking of something, the point goes zzzt. So we can say, what's that? What were you thinking? Go with that.
Yeah, this just goes back to what we were talking about before the break, and that it has to do with communication. And sometimes I go into a point holding group and I'm just in amazement at the lack of communication that people are giving to one another. You know, they plug in, they get the point, and they barely say 2 words to one another through the whole session. And it's like we all need to be willing to be vulnerable and put ourselves out there, especially if we're the kind of people that don't like to communicate. And we need to be willing to listen to what other people want, especially if we're not the kind of people that like to do that. We need to be willing to communicate. I went past a table yesterday, and there was no communication, and the point holder wanted it. And what she needed to do was to say, hey, this is what I want you to do for me. And they needed to say, okay, that sounds good. We'll do our best to do that. And you need to say, is this, as Linda has said, is this enough pain? Can I give you more pain? Or can I push harder? And the person on the table needs to respond to that. And then when we feel the point heating up, we need to say, what were you thinking? Because at that point you are plugged into that person, and you're a part of them in a way, and you're working with them, and we just need to keep that communication going. I just don't think I can emphasize that enough. And it doesn't matter if you're down at the person's feet, and I know that makes it difficult sometimes when all your point holders are at the feet. Maybe you're going to have to shout and be willing to do that. Some of us don't like to shout. We don't want to let our stuff out. Unless, of course, you're Scandinavian.
So, sorry, Maggie, to interrupt.
Derek's lying down.
For people who can see, there's an angel here above my this is just beautiful here. And a few minutes ago, he just came down. And can somebody hold the mic? I'm very weak.
He feels very weak.
A few minutes ago, some very beautiful violet with a bright light angel came down. As a matter of fact, he's still here. He just went up a bit more as somebody came in this space here, which is okay. And I re-experienced, because my heart rate really went very, very fast, very, very high. Maybe it's something to do with my dad's heart attack or something, I don't know. I just accept anything what's happening now. I am quite burning, which is fine. I'm enjoying it. I don't know what to say.
Just enjoy. Rex, did you want to say something? No. Oh, come on. Come on.
Okay, now, oh, here he comes.
Okay, if somebody's lying there and they want to be quiet, they just want to be still. There seems to be a lack of understanding about that. Can we just explore that a little bit? Some of us are using violet light quite a lot, and so we need silence, and we need to be able to get into that state. And there's a point where the pain, where you get to an excruciating pain, and you've got to get to that point before you ask for help, or you ask to transmute it, or you go through a process of transmuting that pain. And there's a lack of understanding, I think, by point holders, that's what's going on. Now, I don't know how you communicate that, because if you're in that state, you want to be able to do it without having to say it. And so there's a feeling there of, well, what's he doing? He's being quiet. He's not doing anything. Let's get into him, you see. And in actual fact, that's quite disturbing. So what I'd like to do is just expand on that a little bit for us, please.
There's definitely a time and a place for all things. And I would say if you're in that space, then, and you're in a non-resistance and you're feeling what's going on in your body, I think it's pretty simple to just communicate that in one word and encompass everything that's going on. Some people who have not experienced that space yet, Rex, they may not understand that. And so the only way to help them to understand is by communicating to them. The other thing that this brings up is that it is not necessary for you as a point hold E on the table to verbalize your memories for anybody. That's not necessary. That's totally up to you. But I would just say, just look at your willingness to do that. Are you willing to do that? Maybe you just made a choice. I don't feel I need to do that. But are you willing to? Because if you're not willing to, then there's a resistance there. Okay? And you as the person on the table, are responsible for your session. You are responsible for your patterns, and you're responsible for the manifestations of them. So you need to start from the very beginning to take that responsibility by telling your point holders what you want and what you need, and not expecting them to know that. Hopefully, as we raise our intuitive abilities, we will be able to respond to each person differently. As we're walking around the room here, you will notice that John and Anita and Doug and I, we don't say the same thing to each person. We don't use the same techniques with each person. We try to, and sometimes successfully, I hope, we try to see what they need, or what not necessarily what they need, but what would be helpful for them to help them to unfold. And each person does it differently. And for some person, going over, like Ken was suggesting the other day when he was on the table, for someone to go over and talk and be noisy wasn't appropriate. And so when we passed by Ken's table, we could sense that, because we put the prayer out there. I put the prayer out there to be of service in whatever way that I can, and to be open to what a person might want or what a person may need, and without any expectations of outcomes. It doesn't matter to me if you get through that pattern. It doesn't matter if you get through that stuff today, because I believe that we're on the right path, and if we just allow one another to unfold, it will all happen. Well, for those of us who have the pattern, I must serve.
Nobody here.
We have it's a constant commitment to see the other side and to let go of that. When we feel that we must serve, there's a need there, there's a drive there, a pushing there. And as we're trying to help somebody, we feel like they need to get through that, they must get through that. You often have the intuitive ability to see something before somebody else goes through it, and you want them to get it. So you say, you push them into that, and you want them to get it. But if you can allow it to be, and sit back, and be willing for them, and be willing for yourself to not need to serve, to not need to be the one to do it, then there's no resistance against them, and they're on their own. And if they do it, it's a blessing to them. And if not, you didn't have a part in creating the negative side of it.
I think one thing that's very hard a lot of times for all of us is to be, on the one hand, perfectly willing to help another person, perfectly willing to serve another person, and yet simultaneously be completely willing for that help or that service not to be wanted, or in fact for it to not do any good. Do you see? In other words, are we able to assume the attitude of being able to be of service without actually needing to be of service? Where we don't really need to serve. We'll serve if it's appropriate, but we're just as willing to not serve. We'll help if it's appropriate, but we're just as willing to not help or to not try to help if the help is inappropriate. And that's a hard one because there's a lot of compulsion there for many of us of, I have to help. I have to do something. I mean, how many of you, when you're around a point-holding situation and you see somebody going through something, how many of you immediately start to feel that either you or somebody else has to do something? Anybody? You don't always have to do anything. I mean, last night, John and I were sitting up here for probably about half an hour, just kind of sitting there watching the room, and there might be some screaming here and some vomiting noises somewhere else and all the rest, and yet you get to a certain point where there's times where you can see all these things going on around you, and yet you know very, very clearly that you don't have to do anything, and that it's not appropriate for you to do anything right at that moment. And then all of a sudden, 2 seconds later, things might change, and you might get a very, very firm guidance to just get over to a certain table and do something. But it's like being equally willing to do something and equally willing to do nothing. Equally willing just to sit there and not do anything. Donna?
I found that it was helpful, and I think this is kind of new for me, but I knew when I got on the table with Gary last night, it would have been nice for him to come up here, that he works a lot with the I am present. So I asked him how he tends to go in his point session, if he's quiet or, how he usually runs it. And that was really helpful for me. And he uses the violet flame a lot, but I would ask when I felt a change in the points what was going on. And sometimes he just wouldn't answer. So I just figured at that time he was doing, some visualization. I would just tell him what the points were doing so he could continue doing whatever it was he was doing. But at the same time, I have another question. What do you do with someone that's really in the head and intellectualizing everything and not actually feeling what's going on in memory? How can we assist in that?
Just love them with non-resistance. What I to get back to the mechanics of facilitating, which is not easy to teach, but and Doug always says, look at what they're doing and help them to do it better, and look at what they're not doing and encourage them to do it. Keep it simple. What is it that we want to do when we're on the table? How is it that you can dissolve a crystal? By getting the thought, the feeling, and the spoken word. When you get those, do it with enthusiasm, use the violet flame. It's that simple. So if they've got a memory and they're just in their head, Donna, then ask them, is there an emotion there? I find oftentimes with people who are intellectual, if you ask them what they're feeling, they'll say, I think Lewis Lewis is a resident thinker. No, he's not. They'll say, I think this.
You ask Lewis what's the emotion there, and he'll say, let me think about it.
So I usually ask them, what's the emotion? If they can't seem to get that, then I'll say, well, what does it feel in your body? What do you feel in your body? Because maybe the sensations that they're feeling in their body is going to help to bring up the emotion. And then I say, is there a word pattern there? And they say, no. Okay, so that's all right. I just encourage people to do what they're doing and to do it well, and then just look for the other things and make it okay that they're not getting more. Even though your point may be burning like firecrackers and you really want them to get more because it'd be really nice if they got through that so it wouldn't burn so much. But just to be willing for them to be where they're at.
Our mental attitudes and our emotional attitudes, our resistances, if we have any, will basically relegate us to a position of reaction. So in other words, if you go into a situation with resistance, then it's inevitable that whatever you do is simply a reaction. Whatever you do is basically going to be wrong in the sense that you're simply reacting because of your resistance. So if we look at a situation, whether it's point holding or anything else, and if we immediately fixate on what should I do, we're looking in the wrong place. Because if we look at what should I do, we're looking at the outer. We're looking at the effect, and we've already missed the boat. Don't focus on what you're going to do or what you're going to not do in a session to the exclusion of looking at your underlying attitudes and motivations. If you can come from a standpoint of non-resistance where you're just as willing to do something as you are to do nothing, where you're just as willing to talk as you are to not talk, you're just as willing to push a person as you are to sit back, you're just as willing to have the person get it as you are for the person not to get it, and any of 1,000 other options. If you can go into the session with that type of non-resistance, that's going to put you in a position where you're actually capable of helping that person. And your help may take the form of doing absolutely nothing other than simply loving the person exactly as they are. Sometimes that's the most important thing. Really, in a lot of ways, that is the most important thing you can do as a point holder, as a facilitator, as a teacher, just as a human being, is to just love the people that you're around without placing any conditions on them. It's one of the most important things, and it's probably the most difficult one. If you're coming from that space, that's what's going to make it possible for you to then really truly know what will be appropriate to do and what will not be appropriate. If you're coming from any other place, any place of resistance, then you're in no position to really know what's appropriate, and all you're really going to end up doing is reacting. Duncan?
So basically, to sum it up, we could say, I'm willing to be of service, but I'm not going to push it.
Are you willing to push it?
If necessary, but be willing to basically take the attitude, I'm not going to push it beyond what is necessary. Should we put it that way?
And once you're able to get to that place of non-resistance where it's totally okay for whatever to happen, and you can just see the perfection in the person's manifestation of their crystals, especially if they're just wallowing in that crystal, you can just see how perfect that is. Then sometimes if I'm at a place where I feel like I'm up against a roadblock, what I do is I just put up a prayer, and I say, if there's something that I can do to be of service in this situation, let me know what it is now. And then I just wait, and I always get the answer, or something always happens to show me. So,
in a couple of my groups, there seems to be some misunderstanding about exactly what is cycling. Would you mind just going over that once more? And I felt it may have happened to me yesterday, partly because two of the point holders, knowing how much mineral I have, felt it very unlikely I was cycling, and I have a soreness in the area where the point holder felt I was cycling. Would that indicate something?
You will often have if you did cycle, you will often have a soreness in the point because it's not finished. There wasn't enough nutrients there to complete it. What you're going to have with cycling is when one or all of the points are going through a repetitive pattern of either heat, cold, electricity, numbness, and it's repetitive. It's very consistent. For example, maybe you'll have burning, searing heat, then flat, then burning, searing heat, then flat. And it's going, or not flat, I should say, but, it cools down a bit. Burning, searing, and it goes like that, and it's consistent. Like maybe if you could probably even time it, and it would be right on, 3 minutes apart or whatever. And it doesn't have to be in all the points. It can just be in one point. If one point's doing that, that means there's not enough nutrients in that body to finish that point or any of the other points. So you have a couple options. If you have enough time and everybody's willing, you can actually remineralize. But often when a person gets to that point, they're so exhausted that the best thing to do is to just have them get off the table and pick them up the next time around. And recognize that the people who were holding those points may have sore fingers, and the points actually may be sore themselves. Now, the only exception is when you have a tie-in. And when you have a tie-in, has been discussed in the sclerology, where the lines of the sclera all tie into one another, let's say medulla, thyroid. You're going to plug a person in on each of those points, and you're going to stay on those points until both of them are done. Unless something cycles. I mean, one may go flat, but you still stay tied in until the other one's complete, because then if you do that, what you will find is that the tie-in will actually disappear within the iris of the eye, or within the sclera of the eye.
What should, if the person's cycling run out of nutrients, what should they do later that day?
Well, you should always take more minerals. What? Doug asked if you did cycle during your session, what should you do later in the day? And you always want to remineralize your body. That's probably a good idea with anybody that's on the table, because you use up a tremendous amount of nutrients to go through this regenerative process. And, just to be able to, for your daily function, after you've had your points out, you need to be remineralized. And even when you're holding points, too, we've had some pretty tremendous healing crises with people who are holding points, Vivian. So we want to make sure that we remineralize ourselves.
Any comments there, Vivian? Sure, if you like.
It was quite exciting.
Do you remember it?
Well, we decided that anybody who holds points on Tana should have somebody to hold them. Because she had 3 point holders and 2 of them were having a hard time staying there.
Well, first of all, I'd held points on Tana the day before, and every time Tana went through something, I went through it too. So if she was hot, I was hot. If she was cold, I was cold, etc. Then I was holding points on her again and going through the things she was going through again. And then I started to feel sick. And so Maggie bought a bucket, or somebody bought a bucket, and I don't know whether I was sick or not, but I felt very sick. Then I went very hot, and after that I fainted. And I was very lucky because Brendan was there, and I could sort of lean on him, and he was sort of taking me through it, and Maggie was there, and she was holding me and sort of, seeing what word patterns I was going through. And in fact, I got back to when I was at boarding school in England, and we used to have to go to church every Sunday, and we were not allowed to eat anything, and we had to kneel or stand for ages. And everyone was always fainting around me, and I didn't want to faint. I thought, I'm not going to faint. So I never fainted. So anyway, I fainted then. I mean, Maggie got me to go back into this. We sort of got back into the church. She said, when did you feel like this before? And I suddenly remembered my school time. And so she got me, back into this again. And I went back through that again, this sort of not wanting to faint. And then I just fainted.
But we didn't just let her faint, because remember, what gets you into the healing crisis is what's going to get you through the healing crisis. And in this case, what got her into it was the fact that she was holding on Tana's point. So as she was lying on Brendan's shoulder, I was holding her finger on the point so that she could go back through it. And eventually she came back to us and was able to hold her own finger on it quite well and got through that one.
Yeah, and the amazing thing was that the day before I'd had quite a hard session on the table, and I was feeling quite ropey, really. I'd been in bed for 12 hours, but I was still really feeling really tired, and I thought, oh, God, point holding. And anyway, after this, I felt really, really, elated. And Brendan was saying, God, you're grinning from ear to ear, and I felt really, really good after this. So I'd like to thank everyone, Maggie, Brendan, and Tana. Thank you.
We'll get a few more points here. It's not quite noon. Why don't we hit the spleen on the foot there? Be on the left foot there.
The spleen is here on the point. If you look at the foot chart, it's right here. And thank you, Tariq. I'm really not in the right angle because you need to be behind it. Is that? No. Is it higher?
It's really often hard to get a good painful spot on the spleen on the foot. And so what we can suggest for this is to try to find another point. Use the list in your patient's guide to try to find another point for the spleen and go for the one that's the most painful.
Or just stay here. Will we just stay on the foot? Or do you want me to do that?
There's one... If you look back in the patient guide, there is a spleen point on the right toe. If you come on the medial, the base of the nail medially, right about in there, not on the nail, but just off the corner medially, there should be a real good spot in there.
No, the right.
Okay, the right. If you look in the patient guide, on the right toe, medially, near the base of the nail. In other words, the part of the corner of the nail that's away from your other toes, which would be medial, just off of that, in that area, you've got a real good painful spot. There's many others. Actually, one of the main points for the spleen is just doing the STO.
Yes.
No, because it's on the top of the foot. This is on the top of the foot, the top of the toe there. The STO is a major point for the spleen. So a lot of times, if you want to get the spleen, you will have gotten it already just by having done the STO, or you can get it again by working the STO.
Even if the person has pretty decent nerve supply, it never hurts to do the STO again because they might just get deeper levels of feeling through their body.
Yeah, that's it.
Sometimes with the spleen, you just really have to get in there and maybe just do one point and use both hands and really just nail it there on the foot. Okay, one last points that we'll get here before lunch is let's get the reproductive organs on the sides of the ankle there on the heel.
That's the spleen that Brendan has here on the foot, just a bit further in actually. It's on the inside of the circle. There's a circle there that goes around on the foot, and you just really have to figure around there till you find it. Yeah.
Brendan, do you want to describe where it is and how you found it?
Okay, I was looking where Lynn was pressing before, Linda, and it was just in, right down from the second toe in between the second and the little toe, and where you said just in the ball.
So you really have to get in underneath that kind of callous part of the foot because that's where, we put it, there's a lot of pressure on our foot there, so you have to kind of get in under that. Is that what you're saying?
Yep, and well, with reference to the foot chart, it's just in a little bit more towards the middle of the foot. Yep, it's right on the edge of where it's marked on the foot chart.
That's good. Let's show the on the ankle there. Let's show the prostate. Esther.
Just a minute.
Just to mention it, the spleen is on the left leg, not bilateral.
Except
you only have one spleen, and it's on the left side of the body typically. So the spleen point is usually just going to be on the left foot. The course. Go ahead. Go ahead. No. Go ahead.
However, there's an exception to everything, and the right toe is on the top of the nail is where you find the spleen point. It's on the right toe. Isn't it?
Yes. But this particular spleen point that we're showing on the bottom side of the foot there, that will just be on the left. What you'll find in that same area over on the right is going to be what? It's going to be your liver over there. And also, since you got part of your liver on your left side, in that same point that's going to be the spleen point, what are you also going to be getting? You're going to be getting your liver there as well. So you have a number of things to consider. Why don't we show the prostate or uterus on the inside and the testicle or ovary on the outside?
If you just draw a straight line between the ankle and the heel, the back of the heel, just like that, the point will actually be right there in the middle, smack bang in the middle, if you have a look at Doug's as well up there. And it's a C-clamp as well, so you get both sides of that and just squeeze nice and hard.
What you're dealing with, if you just think about the pretty easy way to remember it, is that if you take Tarek as an example here, he's going to have one prostate, hopefully, and that's going to be a midline structure. It's going to be in the center of the body, and there'll be two testicles, which will be somewhat out to the side from the center of the body. So if you just think about him just standing here like this, the prostate's point will be on the inside, on the inside of the ankle, and then the testicles will be out laterally on the outside of the foot. And then if you think of a woman, one uterus, midline structure, so that's going to be in the inside, two ovaries, which will be slightly out to the side, slightly lateral, so the ovaries are going to be in the outside. So if you just think about it from an anatomical standpoint, it's really not that difficult to remember that you'll have the prostate or the uterus in the center, and the testicles or the ovaries out on the outside.
What is the relationship between the prostate and the pubic points?
The pubic points. The pubic points will have a tremendous amount of reflex act. Those ones that a number of you have had held, which we'll go over this afternoon, those will have a tremendous amount of reflexes to all sorts of things, including the reproductive organs, the bladder, the legs, everything in the lower abdomen, all sorts of things which would include the prostate. Is everybody clear on all the points we've gone over here on the feet? So that means that nobody needs any help finding them next time we hold points? Be careful what you answer here. Okay, maybe a little bit of help.
I hope we're just getting to the point where we realize how much we don't know.
Are we rolling? Okay, we're going to go over some of the major heart points, and we'll start with the thymus there. So you can narrate there, Linda, and Corey will follow your clues here. So tell them what we're finding here. The thymus there. Flick it on.
You find the manubrium, the articulation to the manubrium, which is that ridge at the top of the sternum. The manubrium is the bone above the sternum, and the articulation joins them. And if you get onto to push it the other way, you push down onto the articulation. Okay. So there's a little sort of five-sided bone, and you actually push. You make sure you keep the pressure that way and in.
You'll feel like a little ledge there. This is the body of the sternum, and that's the manubrium. So if you just follow down from the jugular notch there, you'll come across a little lump, and that's the ledge, and you push down and inwards.
Where exactly are you in relation to the ledge, to the articulation?
Just above the ledge.
Right. You're touching it, but you're coming from the top, not the front.
It's because that's the articulation of the manubrium there, so you just push straight in and onto the ledge a bit.
Now, you'll find on that point that if you just find this on yourself, everyone, okay? Start off right here, and find the notch right here, right in the center at the base of your throat. Okay, can you all see that? Find that notch, and then come down a couple inches right down the middle of the body, and you should find a bit of a ridge right here. Bit of a ridge. Now, some of you will have a ridge that sticks out quite a bit. I mean, some people will have a ridge that just, probably sticks out a quarter inch or more. Some of you will find that there's almost nothing there. It's fairly flat along there. So you got to be a little bit more, just go very, very slowly along there. And when you feel that, a bit of a ridge, or when you feel like that, even just the suture between the bones, that's when you're on the spot. You're going to be right in the midline of the body generally, and you're going to get against the top edge of that ridge, not the front edge, not right here at the front, but at the top. And the normal angle is about like this. You're going kind of at about a 45-degree angle, about like that. So you're going to the back of the body, and you're going to the bottom of the body. Now, the exact point and the angle will vary a bit, but that's usually what it's at. Now, if you just have Tarek just lie down for a second there, you'll find that this point, if you really want to get good pressure on this point, it's really better to stand on it. I mean, stand up when you're holding it. The reason being that if you're going to get in there, see, if you're going to come right in here like this, where you've got the notch right there, here's the ridge, and you're going to get in there right like that. If I try to do this from a sitting position, I've got very little leverage, plus I got my wrist bent in half. So it's very, that tends to be pretty awkward. So this is usually a pretty good point to do standing. Although sometimes if you have a massage table or a very, very low table, you can sit in a chair and be kind of leaning over and do quite a good job on it. Okay? Now, can you all find that spot on yourself? Who's not finding it? Raise your hand. Okay, keep your hand up there if you haven't found it. Somebody sitting near you, find it on them. Okay? Okay, go get her. Find somebody. If you haven't found it, get somebody to find it on you. This one right here. Yeah. It's usually going to be just maybe a couple of inches below the notch here. Okay, somebody get her there. She's got her hand up. Okay, has everybody got that one? Okay, we've got a lot of different heart points on the chest, Linda. And one thing for all of you to bear in mind, if it is a heart point, what is it also? It's always going to be a lung point as well. So if you're looking for lung points, look for heart points. If you're working on the heart, you are working on the lungs. Ian? Yeah, maybe we ought to get somebody a little bit less hairy up there.
Fine with me?
Yeah. Can we have a hairless chest up here?
Yeah, one. For a sec.
Woo!
Thank you, Tarek. Okay. Now, next thing we want to do is find the heart point over here on the side and the heart firing up in the armpit. So if you guys can tell us what you're doing, and the rest of you can kind of find them on yourself.
For the heart point on the side, if you come down the midline of the body and in line with the nipple, and you'll get a spot there somewhere.
What you're actually looking for, it's not really the midline, because it's not. It's what's called the anterior.
It's easier when you're lying.
Yeah.
No, but no.
It's actually going to be
you do this lying down.
The line coming down the side is actually not going to be the midline front to back. It's going to be what's called the anterior axillary line, which is basically coming out of the very front of the armpit. So you will be a little bit further forward than middle.
We could turn it round.
Yeah.
It might be better. Look at the side.
Get the table that way? Yeah, let's go for it.
Just fly sideways. Okay, there.
So if you trace the nipple line across, and then you take a line out of the front of your armpit there, just right in behind the pectoral muscle coming down out of the front, about where they intersect, you'll be on a rib right here on the side. And if you press right in on that rib on either your left or your right, it should be quite sore. You should have quite a good sore spot there. You all got that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, can you see it good there, Sakara? Okay. If you come across right here, just take your thumb off for a second. Okay, so just so she can see it for the camera. How's that right there? Okay? So that's going to be about the spot right there. Okay? And it's right on a rib. It's not down between the ribs, although those might hurt. It's right on the rib. Right like that. Okay? That's a heart point. The pressure is usually pretty much which way? Straight in. Yeah, straight in, straight towards the middle of the body on that. Okay, now from there, where do we go for the heart firing?
We move about an inch, sort of like upwards in a diagonal line towards the head.
Might be as much as 2 inches. It's up into the armpit. Say 1 to 2 inches up that way. Yeah. It's gonna vary a bit. What's that, Ken? Yeah, about 3 finger widths will sound about right. Their finger, not yours. It will be on a rib again, and it will be up in the armpit. I mean, bottom line is use the descriptions to get in the right ballpark. It should be quite obvious when you're on these points because they're very sore. I mean, get up there and find your own heart firing. It should be pretty obvious when you're on it because it's going to be very tender on just about everybody. Is there anybody not finding it? Okay. Let's get that, show that other heart firing point straight between the nipples, midway between the nipples. Yeah.
Can you stand on the other side?
Have them flip up there. Just have them sit up for a second so you can get it on the camera.
Yeah, right.
No. Right about there.
Okay, this. Go ahead. Well, this will also work as a good heart point and heart firing to some extent. But you're talking straight between the nipples, so right in the sternum, right in the middle of the body, right on the nipple line. That'd be a very, very good heart point that a number of you have had some good results with. That a good one, Chris?
Yeah.
Okay.
A little bit, yeah.
Yes. Okay. Now, do you all have that one? Just straight between the nipples in the middle of the body. Very, very good spot. Janine?
Is that so? That's also the heart firing.
Yeah. See, the thing to realize here, which we'll cover more in the 5th and 6th week, you have all sorts of other reflexes here because the pectoral muscles, your chest muscles, reflex to the heart. They reflex to a lot of other things. So if you want to be really picky about it, practically any sore spot in the chest is probably going to be a heart point. So there's oodles of other points around there. I'm just giving you a few of the more effective ones. Thank you. Okay, another set of heart points. If you look just on either side of the breastbone or sternum, where you've got the ribs coming in like this, you're going to be just next to the breastbone, touching it, but to the side of it, and kind of slipping down in between the ribs. And you'll find you've got about 4 or 5 of those points on either side. Now, play around with this on yourself here, and what you'll notice is there'll be some of them that'll be more painful than others. Where's John Critchley? Is he with us? You had a little experience with one of these points, didn't you?
Yeah, but there's actually all the way up and down.
Those are heart points. These would be heart points on either side there. So just demonstrate them on here. John's. Yeah, but just talk about how you never got burning on any of the other ones.
Yeah, I think the first point holding that Pamela did on my heart points a few nights ago. I have never had any feeling in the middle of my sternum, perhaps because of the saw cut down the middle. But Doug came along and said, "Is that sore?" And that's nearly 2 inches off the centre line between those ribs, and that was sore. So that worked fine. Thank you. We got straight into a lot of pain in the middle of the chest. Yeah.
So the thing to realize here is sometimes you get just the right point, and that's what's going to make the difference. John here has had his points held for a couple of years, and he'd never ever had burning there, especially in the chest area, and he'd had tremendous numbers of heart points held. Is that correct? I mean, over and over and over again, he'd had heart points held, and he'd never got burning. So the thing is, try something different. You know, if one thing's not working, try something else. And all I did was I just felt around on those different points, and I found the one that was the sorest. Because you got at least 4 on either side. Find the one that hurts the most, and that's a good one to start on. Now, are a lot of you finding that you got quite a difference in the amount of pain in these different heart points next to the sternum? Yeah, so go with the one that hurts the most. That's a winner. Okay.
Therefore, I think it might also be advisable on the flow sheet if we write down the points that has been held and where in the body that was held. Because sometimes you do some, you ask about, I mean, you know, you have 4 crosses on your pituitary on the heart and say, yes, it has been done a couple of times. Maybe it has been done on the same point over and over. So if we could just mark where we have done those heart points, it would be, or whatever point, it will be easier to know where it has not been done and then do it then.
The points on either side, that would be more mainly applicable to people who've had open heart surgery, would it, and been split part of the way down? But it could be where I haven't actually had any...
Not at all. Those points would be absolutely fabulous for anybody. You know, you got a whole bunch of different heart points here to choose from. Find the ones that hurt the most.
Yeah, what I was meaning actually was if anybody's had open heart surgery, you'd be more likely to find a spot on the side rather than in the centre, because I've been held in the centre, but I haven't had I haven't had any burning. But I haven't been held on the sides yet, so I don't know.
Let's try it and see. It might not necessarily be the same for everybody. Some people who've had the incision right up and down the middle from this heart surgery, some people will be very, very numb there, and it will be hard to get pain there, whereas you might be able to get it to the side, which is what we had with John. But other people might still be very, very sore there, and they might get fantastic results going right smack in the middle, right along the incision. So I wouldn't want to dig my heels in too deep on that one. I would just try to, look at each person individually and see what works there. Let's go over that triple axis clavicle. Triple axis clavicle. Now, this is a point that is going to be a tremendous point, not just for the heart, although it will affect that. This is going to be a point that's going to help in restructuring the entire upper body. I mean, basically, if you do this on the left side and the right side, you can pretty well affect anything from the diaphragm up. So you can have a tremendous, tremendous benefits on the, on the arm, the shoulder, the chest, the back, the whole bit up here, everything from here up. Go to it.
Basically, if you find the collarbone there, and you'll want to be going along to the manubrium here, that's the top bone up there, and so the pressure is going to be. So you'll go along there and you'll find the bone, and you'll just follow it along there, and your thumb will come to a bump. That's the manubrium bone. Okay, so you're going to be. The reason it's called a triple axis clavicle because you've got to push 3 directions. So we're going to be pushing down towards the back of the body, over in towards the manubrium, and upwards towards the collarbone, the clavicle.
Okay, be very, very precise here, Corey. Which thumb do you use? This is important.
You'll use the on this side. On this side, you'll be using the right thumb, won't you?
Okay, on his right side, which thumb will you be using? Which thumb will you be using?
The right thumb.
Okay, on his right side, which do we use? Okay, the left thumb. In order to get the right angle, you're just as you're doing it there. Left thumb, because you won't be able to get all 3 directions properly if you try to use a right thumb over here. So you need to use a left thumb on their right side, or of course a right thumb on their left side. Okay, so that's the first thing you got to know. What's the exact orientation of the thumb? Okay, Tana, come show.
Sorry. Well, you have to lie down.
Yeah, get it. It's a little easier just for right now. Just have them lie down there. Now show exactly how your thumb is going to be positioned here.
Okay, it's going to be you find the 3 bones and you go down, in, and up. Is that right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
If you look at it like this, okay, just stand right over here for a second. You're wanting to get in 3 different directions here. If you can remember, you know what it looked like when he was standing up here. We got 3 different bones that we're trying to put pressure on. Okay, what are the 3 bones? Okay, what bone am I going to be pressing up on? Okay, the clavicle or collarbone. What bone am I going to be pressing to the middle of the body on? Okay, the sternum, the upper portion, the manubrium, but the sternum. So what's the other bone? Okay, the first rib, and which way will I be pressing? Okay, straight down or straight to the back of the body. So if I want to get that in there with the thumb, I'm not really going to get the right pressure with my thumb like this. Okay? That's not going to work. If I try to put my thumb like this, that's also not going to work very well. I need to get my thumb like this. Okay? That's the way you need to get your thumb. You may be at a bit of an angle like that, but basically, you want to use the pad of the thumb. Okay, this part right here. You know where your thumbprint is. That's what you want to use to press which direction on which bone. Okay, up on the collarbone. So I want that pad of the thumb pressing up on the collarbone. The tip of my thumb, what bone's that going to press on? Okay, the sternum, and in which direction? Okay, into the middle. So what does that leave for the first rib? Okay, the outside edge there. So if I get my thumb right in here like this, now, if I get in here like this, okay, right now, no, that's the right thumb on left side. If I get right now I got 2 directions on you. This is his left side and my right thumb, okay? Exactly how to do it. Now, if you get the tip of the thumb in there, you can feel I'm pressing to the center of your body with the tip of the thumb, and I'm pressing to the top of the body like that on your collarbone with the pad of the thumb. Now compare that amount of pressure, the 2 directions. I'll give you the same amount of pressure, but I'll get the 3rd direction. Just hold this for a second. You feel the difference when you get that 3rd direction there. This point is you'll get plenty of pain and plenty of burning on the point just getting your thumb in there somewhere. Okay, no question about that. But you're not going to get the regeneration of the body. You're not going to get the restructuring if you're not getting all 3 directions and all 3 bones. It's very, very hard to maintain the pressure on the first rib. I mean, I don't have it right now. Okay, I'm in there like that. So you really need to get your other hand in here like this and get down there like that so that you got that pressure to the back of the body. Unless you're really, really strong or you're doing this point on somebody that's very, very small, I would not recommend doing another point at the same time. You know, use both hands on this one because you're gonna need it. Now, again, feel the difference there, Chris, between that, which is good firm pressure, versus that. Yeah. How much does the intensity increase between that and that?
Double or triple.
So very, very important that you get all three directions there. Okay? The point's just not going to be effective if you're not getting them all. Tarek? Okay. Okay. So I would be coming in. Why don't you do? I can't really get the right angle from there. Why don't you get it from there?
You can speak.
Okay. So you see what he's doing there? He's getting the tip of his thumb in against the breastbone. He's getting the pad of his thumb up against the collarbone. And he's also going to get that edge of his thumb back, to the back of the body against the first rib. Okay? You got it, Sakara? Okay. Now, I want you all to consider something else here. Just slide down a second there again, Chris. In Chris's case, he's actually fairly loose here. He's got big muscles, but they're fairly loose. So it's not hard to get in on him. You can get in on that point quite easily on Chris. You're going to find some people where it's going to be very, very hard to get all 3 bones because the muscles, depending on the way the shoulders are and that sort of thing, you may have a lot of tension in the muscles. A little trick you might want to bear in mind. It's very, very, very simple. Take your own left hand, okay, and place it up in that approximate area on yourself. Okay, just come across the body. Okay, just get your hand up there. Now, feel what happens to the muscle there when you put your arm back like that. Feel how that kind of tightens the muscle across there and it's kind of hard to get in? Okay? Now take your arm and kind of go like this. And if you feel how you kind of hollow that out in there, okay? If you go kind of round your shoulder forward and go like that. So sometimes if you want to really find the 3 bones on the person, get them to move their arm a bit like this and play around with it, like hollow it forward so you get that, you can get that loosened up in there. You don't have to hold, you can get their arm back down once you're on the point, but have them get that arm forward like that so you create a bit of a hollow there, because you really want to get in contact with the first rib there. I've seen a lot of people doing this where they're getting burning, they're getting pain, but they're not getting the job done because they're not getting down on the first rib. I've seen people where they're way too far out. I've seen a number of you holding this where you're off by a couple inches. You're way out here by the shoulder someplace. Yes, it's burning. It's a good spot. It'll probably do something, but it's not the triple axis. So you want to get in there. Okay, go for it. Go get him. Just get him. Let's see that thumb position. You recap this, Corey.
Thank you.
Yeah, just once more for the tape.
Okay, you can't see it very well from this side, but you're going to be wanting to go straight in there. First of all, you're pushing in towards the manubrium, and then you're pushing up towards the collarbone, and then you're going to have your other hand come down and push it down in towards the rib. And then you're going to break the neck. And from what John has told me also, it's much better to do them both at the same time.
Yes.
On both sides. 2 people? No, 2 people. So this is one that's going to need 2 people to do.
Yeah. It's as Corey said, it's really ideal if you can get both sides done on this at the same time, because you can get a restructuring of the whole chest there. You are going to some extent, doing it on the right side is going to affect the right side of the body, and left side, but you will get a certain amount of crossover. But if you take care of both sides at once, you can get some very, very radical restructurings of the chest. You can get the ribs to come out. Lewis has had some very good success with this point, where he's had it held, and he's had all sorts of bone... who was there when that happened? You were there, weren't you? You were there. Remember that out in San Diego? Lewis had all sorts of crunching and popping and motion in the chest. Everything was coming around back to where it ought to be, just from having these points held. So these are tremendous points for any kind of restructuring, and certainly very, very good for anybody with heart problems, lung problems, any of the organ problems up in the chest as well. Yeah, every time on Lewis we've gotten some results with this. This is definitely one that I'd recommend you all get held somewhere along the line. Okay, since we got you on your face up here, why don't we go with the pubic point there? We'll give you your choice here, Chris. You want Corey to do it or Linda? Or Sama? Okay, what's the first thing we have to find before we find the point? Okay, what's the second thing we have to find before we find the point?
We have to find the femoral artery so that we're not pushing on that and cutting off the blood supply to the legs.
Make sure everybody understands what you're talking about here.
Okay, there's main artery that goes right down to the leg that supplies the leg with the blood supply, and we don't want to be pushing on that, or we're cutting off the blood supply to the leg. So
well, what's wrong with that?
We don't want their leg to turn blue and fall off.
Okay, fair enough. So how exactly do you go about finding that, Corey?
Well, you've got to feel around here, down around there. It's more towards the inside of the leg, and so you'll just feel around there with your fingers until you find a pulse.
I usually introduce myself first, but...
Yeah, and as John says, make sure all the garden equipment's over to one side. Okay, so once you've found the pulse there, then we've got to go for the bone, and that's the exciting part for the person on the table. Now I might have to get you to move your legs apart.
So be very, very explicit in what you're doing there, Corey.
You might have to explain that because you're better at explaining.
What are we looking for? I want to hear you do it.
Okay, we're looking for the pubic bone, and we're looking for the underside edge of that. And so we're going to go from the midline. So if we drew a line down the middle of the pubic bone.
How exactly do we find the pubic bone?
we dig around down here until we find the bone.
No, see, we have a little BE etiquette here. When you're trying to find the top of the pubic bone, do you start low and work up, or do you start high and work down? Start high and work down.
Okay.
Yeah, for all you level 8s out there.
Okay, what more do you want to say?
No, you got it.
Okay, so what you'll find, so you go the midline down, and then it's just a little bit, sometimes around about 1 inch to 1.5 inches out from the midline. You just find a little ledge in there, and then you're going to want to push straight up towards the head.
Again, this is a very, very good point to do both sides at once. Mm-hmm. Get a person on each side. And it's tremendous for restructuring the lower body, the legs, the lower abdomen. Very, very good point overall. Reproductive organs, bladder, anything down in that area is very, very good on this.
And it's also a point that you need to stand to do, really. Not the patient. Yeah, you'll find what'll happen. You want to push on the underside of the pubic bone straight up towards the head. So you don't want to be pushing down on it. So you're going to find where you can actually push upwards without sliding up the upper side of their body. So you'll just be going straight in there and finding a little ledge. You'll feel it there. And you just push straight up. Just the pressure. And so you'll sometimes need to support yourself there with the other hand, because I just slipped on him then, because you're just on the edge of the bone.
One thing that you're looking for, basically, if you're on this part of the body here, you kind of have the what you might call the junction of the leg with the torso there, kind of the Y that's coming up like that. And that's what you're kind of going along there. So you're coming up along that till you hit that underside of the pubic bone there. So you're going to be maybe a couple inches out on either side of the midline, maybe 1 inch. It's going to vary depending on the size of the individual there. Yeah, but it's got flesh on it, so.
And when you're doing it, you'll feel the tendon on one side of your thumb as you're pushing there. So you'll know you can't go over further because the tendon's there, the tendon on the leg coming on the inside there.
This point has in many cases been very, very helpful for people in restructuring legs, particularly like legs that are anatomically short. We'll leave the eggs out of it, but we'll deal with the legs here. This has been a very good one for restructuring. Some people have one leg that might be 1 inch shorter than the other, and this has been very, very good at helping to restructure that. And you've had a number of people that have actually had a leg grow, maybe anywhere from 1/2 inch to even 1 inch or two in a point holding session with this point. Okay, Esther.
You say it affects the lower part of the body. That includes the pelvic, the organs as well of reproduction. Therefore, we have to make sure that the pancreas and other parts are maintained before we hold that point.
Where is this point found on the flow sheet? After the spine. This is way along the flow sheet. You've already gone through the endocrine system. You've already gone through the major organs. You've already gone through the spine. This is way along the program sheet. If you look at the flow sheet and look where, there's a reason that things are in the order they're in. So the problem that Esther's bringing up of if we held this point and it got the gonads going and the person had cancer, they're going to be in trouble. Yes, that's true. But if you're following the flow sheet, you won't have gotten to this point without already having taken care of the pancreas and all these other things. You will have taken care of that stuff months ago before you ever get to this point. Months and months.
This is in the normal, if a person is on the program, and normally we follow that. But if there was some emergency like gangrene and that kind of stuff, it's a little tricky there.
A lot of people are in a hurry. A lot of people are in a hurry and they want to skip ahead to things that they're not ready for and don't really have any business doing. And they get themselves in trouble. A lot of people will try to do point holding in areas that they're really not ready to do yet, and it's not typically very effective for them, and it's potentially a real problem for them. So people have to learn to slow down, take things a step at a time, and really take care of the basics. Some people are going to need quite a lot of point holding just before they're even ready for a spinal. I mean, there'll be some people that will be ready for a spinal in just 2 or 3 or 4 sessions, but there'll be other people that will need 15 or 20 sessions before a spinal is even going to be effective on them. So you have to be very, very patient and methodical here, and that's really the purpose of having the flow sheet, so that people aren't in such a hurry to race ahead and do something before it's time. It's like picking fruit when it's not ripe. I mean, it's kind of a waste. You want to wait till things are really at the right moment before you're going to go to it, because you're not going to get the same results otherwise. Why don't we have you flip over there, Chris? We'll go over a little bit of the spine now. Probably we can get your head up the other end there if you want to face whole. Okay. With the spine, you want to look at a couple of different things here. You should all have in your handout somewhere a spinal chart. And that chart is going to show the reflexes from the different organs and glands to the different vertebrae. Now, if we have this individual here, Corey, and we want to know what areas to hold in his spine, what are some different ways that we could go about that? What are some different methods in terms of selecting points along the spine?
Okay, well, you can either, if there is a specific problem in an organ that you want to handle a spine there, you can either try to find the number of the vertebrae there and go down there and target that particular spot.
So give an example. Okay, for example, the heart will be around the second thoracic. So what might you do?
So you want to start there, and you'll go down to the heart point there you'll find the second thoracic vertebrae there, and you'll go in there and find. And often, if there is a problem with the heart, there will also be a calcification on that point, and so you'll probably find the calcification there, and that's the other.
Okay, question here: if the chart says that the heart will be reflexed there at the second thoracic vertebrae, what vertebrae do we really need to take care of? 2 up, 2 down. Okay, so we need to take care of which vertebrae, really? The vertebrae that you have, as well as 2 above and 2 below. So you really got a whole strip there, which in this case would be anywhere from C7 to T4. You need to go 2 vertebrae above and 2 vertebrae below. Why would it be important to get, why can't we just fix that with heart? I mean, if he's got a heart problem, why can't we just do heart points?
Because sometimes the nerve supply is being cut off to the heart by the calcification in the spine. Okay,
so this is important. You're going to have a lot of people where you've done heaps of point holding on a particular area, like, say, the heart, and you've plateaued. You've made a certain level of improvement, and you're not getting any further because you've got problems in a particular area of the spine that are shutting down the nerve supply. And until that's corrected, you're not going to get any further. Okay, Linda, what's another way we can select points besides going by the chart and going by what we know we need to do that way?
Well, you can always look in the eye and see what's. You can look in the eye and see what's happening with the indicating and degeneration lines in the sclera.
Check out the spine area and the neck area and see what vertebrae show up that way. Yeah. Okay. What's another way, Mag?
Well, you can just go directly to the spine and just feel your way up and down the spine and look for anything that's abnormal or out of the ordinary. If you've never felt a spine that does without calcifications, it might be hard, but you just look for what? No, but if you just look for where the lumps are. It's just like it's just like in iridology, when you swing around the eye, you look for the things that stand out. It's the same with the spine. Feel your way down the spine, and the things that stand out are the areas that you probably want to work on, and they'll be the places that'll have the most pain too. So. Well, okay. Going, Chris, right up in here, we've got a calcification on either side here. That's quite noticeable. You know, if you look above and below that, it really sticks out. Another thing might be a curvature that's going to one side or the other, where the spine will curve like this. Okay? Or another thing could be the spine could be curved up or in towards the front of the body. Those would all be things that would be abnormal. Now the spine does have a natural curve. If you've ever seen a skeleton, it does have a natural curve. But we're talking about out of the ordinary.
What do we do next?
You find the pain and push.
Sounds good. But what do we do first before we even try to find the pain and push on a spine? Okay, we're always going to check the eye. How come?
We don't want this to be a big cancer on the thoracic up here.
Right.
We don't want cancer of the spine, because if we're applying a pressure to that, we can just crush the whole vertebrae then.
Not to mention split up a tumor.
Yep.
That'll turn it into a femur. Okay, what next?
Go in and push.
Okay, what exactly are we pressing on? Help me out there, Linda.
Well, it depends on what you find, but you're pressing on the calcification at the side. Usually with an elbow is better. You get a better pressure and you can keep it firmer.
Show exactly what part of the elbow you use, the position of the hand. Really be very specific on this.
You scoop your elbow in. You're using this part of the elbow here.
The key word there is scoop.
And you put it beside.
Make sure everybody sees exactly what part of the arm you're using.
And you're using actually that part of the elbow, and you scoop it in towards the spine.
Okay, so where exactly are you pressing on the spine?
You're pressing that way. You're not actually pressing straight down on the spine in this instance. You're pressing across it. So you're pressing on the side of the vertebrae.
The side closest to you.
Closest to you, and pushing away from you with that flat side of your elbow.
And what's a fairly typical angle of pressure?
45. 45 degrees. If you come in from the elbow there like that at a 45-degree angle, it's really probably, I find, if you move around a bit, you can get an amazing amount of change in the pain level there, just by moving very slightly, just like every other point really. But the elbow is a bit trickier, and you actually need to cradle the elbow with your other hand.
How come?
Because it hurts if you slip. If you're in there and applying as much pressure as you can, you need to support that tip of the elbow with your other hand to stop it from slipping.
Okay, show exactly how that's done.
Okay.
The reason you want to scoop in there is because really what you want to be doing is pushing on the side of the spine. But to do that, you have to get kind of past the muscles. And oftentimes people will have really tight muscles right where they have a calcification. So that the scooping motion is really important. That helps to kind of separate the muscles so you can get the elbow in there.
And notice it's good to keep your fingers into your palm like that, as Doug was saying earlier. It's really quite important. I see a lot of people sort of on the spines and resting. We all have to rest the head, but it's still good to keep that there, because it's an amazing amount of sensation you're getting through those fingertips.
Show them also what happens to the elbow as you move around in different hand positions.
It actually rolls on the spine. You get a different pressure if you change it around like that.
So you get a lot better, leverage or contact there if you have your hand towards you like this, as Corey's got it. If you have your palm facing back towards you, the fingertips and the palm is good for having the sensitivity of what's going on there. But it's not just having the fingertips and the palm. It's having the hand palm towards you as opposed to palm away from you, because your elbow is going to behave differently because you're moving the bones around there. Okay, so we're looking for a number of different things, as Mag has said. We're looking for calcifications, which is where you have a vertebrae that's obviously, a calcification is an area where it's obviously quite a bit larger than the ones above or below it. And that's a sure sign that you've got a calcification. You want to look for areas where the vertebrae are out of alignment, where something's obviously sticking to one side or the other. You have some sort of rotation or displacement, to one side or the other. Let's say we find a curvature. How do we handle a curvature with respect to, say he's got a curvature let's just say for the sake of argument that he's got a curvature coming towards me, towards his left, in the upper part of the spine. Where would you press? Take the extreme point. Yeah. Show.
So let's say Chris's spine is coming towards Doug here, and the greatest curvature is here, is where Corey's hand is, and that's where you push.
So you basically, as Mag's drawing up here, you go to the extreme point of the curve. In other words, you go to the place where it goes furthest over, furthest to the side, and you push back against it. Now, in some cases, you'll have a C curve, but what you might also have is what type of a curve? You might have an S curve. What do you do then? 2 points. You go to the extreme point on either side, and you always press back to the center on these.
With two people.
With two people, yeah. Sometimes you can do it with one person with thumbs, but it's much easier to get, again, it's better to do 1 point really well. So you get one person on an elbow on one and another person on an elbow on another. Okay, what's going to be the...
It's really important when you're working on the spine to find a point and find a spot and stay on it. And it's really easy to slip off, because especially when you're using an elbow, you have to really use a concerted effort to stay on that point, because there's going to be a lot of places that it's painful, and you shift a little bit and it might be just as painful in another spot. But to fully dissolve the calcification properly, you need to stay right on that point till it's finished and flat.
I was just wondering if anybody here has a curvature so that one could see it. Oh, right.
Yeah, Ruth had one. Where's Ruth? Yeah. She had one, but we're a little late on that. It disappeared, I think. Simon?
You've got a little bit, but it's probably when you get up.
I'm just a bit at sea here on which points to hold on the spine. So you're saying that we hold 2 up and 2 down. So does that mean the spinal isn't complete? That point holding isn't complete until 5 vertebrae have been held on both sides. If there are calcifications on both sides, which they are on most spines that I've seen, not that I've seen that many, that seems to be a hell of a lot of point holding for one trip.
You need the entire area certainly needs to come right. But that doesn't mean that you have to press on every single point. If you can get 1 point in that area and really do it well, you may get burning through that whole area and the whole thing will correct just from 1 point. We don't know for sure whether it's all going to correct from 1 point. But the thing about it is don't be in a hurry to try to do a lot of extra points. Make sure you thoroughly completed the 1 point you started on. A lot of times, as we've seen with many, many people here, the spine will straighten out quite marvelously in all sorts of areas where there's never been any contact at all, just from holding other points.
Also, if you look at your flow sheet, it starts with the top of the spine, the first cervical. So you always want to, when you're starting to do spinal work, start at the top and look for the deviations up there first, and work on those and work your way down.
Well, what was the significance of the term 2 up and 2 down, 5 vertebrae?
If, for example, you have an organ or gland whose, according to chiropractic, would have its nerve supply originating around, say the 7th thoracic, what you'll find in practice is that problems in the 5th, 6th, 8th, and 9th thoracic can also affect that organ and gland. They can also shut down the nerve supply to that organ and gland. So what you have to look at in practice is a whole segment of the spine has to come right in order to have full nerve supply to that organ or gland. I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear earlier. Yeah.
Simon, this might help you. I had my points held, one up here by Tana and one down there by Janet. And the regeneration was happening down in the lumbar area, and it came a bit slowly up. So it's really very obvious you don't need to be pressing all over the place, one point. And as I said before, hold the body still. Then it just happens.
Well, to go along with that, Tarek, just like everything else in the body, everything reflexes to everything, and you'll find that the neck will reflex to the tailbone. So if someone has problems in the neck, they'll probably have problems in the lower back as well. It's just a reflex. So.
I've had two different experiences with back. Oh God, hi guys. I did Tarek 2 nights ago, and with Jan on the foot, and when I asked Tarek to hold his body completely still, that's when he really got the burning, searing pain through the body. Now, last night I was hold Aniki with Heather, and a completely different experience altogether was happening. She got vibrations and cramps and spasms in her back, and just let that be, and that's when the cracking happens. So I guess there's different kinds of back cracking.
Doug, if I may just have your opinion on the S-shaped curvature. Simon, guys. Simon and I held bilateral gluteus maximus points on Julie a while back, and an S-shaped curvature straightened before our eyes. When is that appropriate?
Anytime. We'll get to that right now. One way of dealing with a curvature to the side is to go to the extreme point on the spine and hold it like that. The other way to go about it is to go to the cheeks there. So, Corey and Linda, tell us which cheek we go to and how we go about it. Let's assume for the sake of argument now that he's got a curve going to his right, going away from Corey.
Okay, so as Doug said, if the curve goes away, like that way, you'll do the opposite side. And
so left cheek for a curve going to the right.
Okay, and what we're actually looking for is what they call the sit-down bone. So the ischial tuberosity.
No, we'll do that later. Go right in the middle of the cheek for this one. Yeah.
Okay.
Butt point. I don't know. I just call it the butt. I just call it the butt point. I don't know if it's got or the gluteus. But
you go
I like
for that
butt
one.
point, but.
You go for that one.
Well, basically, what you're going to do is you're going to get right in the middle of the cheek there in the glute, and show them the angle there, hon. Give her a mic there.
Well, you want to basically be going this way, diagonally almost, and down. The angle down is about 45 degrees, right?
Yeah.
How's that feel, Chris? Okay.
It's kind of it's a 45-degree angle, between like horizontal and vertical. It's 45 degrees between going like this and going like this. And it's also 45 so in other words, it's 45 degrees between going superiorly in his body versus going medially, which means you end up about like this. And then it's also 45 degrees between going straight down or going straight across, which means you end up at about an angle that way. And as Corey's holding it there with an elbow, in order for him to really get the right angle, what's he going to have to do with his shoulder? He's going to have to really dip his shoulder down, because you really want to have that angle from the shoulder to the elbow, which means that you got to really almost kind of crouch or adjust the table height to really get the right angle there with the elbow. Now, some people will do it like this with the elbow. Some people will get in it lean like that. But you want to really get that angle from the shoulder to the elbow properly, so you can really get in there on this one. So give it a good go there.
That's the butt point.
Or the gluteus. On the flow sheet, one of the things that would be indicated there is where they have spine curvature, because this is very specific for curvature of the spine. And as Heather was mentioning, they had one person had an S curve in their spine, and she and Simon held both cheeks for that one, and the whole S curve did straighten out. Now, was that here or somewhere else? Oh, okay. Okay, now does everybody have this? You all know how to do this point here? Okay, show him again, Corey. Tell everybody what he's doing there, Linda.
He's coming in at an angle, going across the body that way, and at a 45-degree angle into the body that way. And you're pushing in to the centre, down and across.
At this point, too, it doesn't really matter which arm you use, whichever one works the best for you. Like some of the points, it's important to use, one hand or the other, but this one, no?
You can do a good job with either. It's just whatever works. Okay, is everybody fairly clear on that point now? Gloria? Come on up to the mic, please.
I was just wondering that if you are alone, do you just press any of the buttocks, or you have to?
What's the question exactly?
With an S-shaped curvature.
You're really going right into the middle of the buttock. You're going right into the middle of the gluteus. No matter where the curve is in the spine, you're going to the same place in the butt.
So if the shape is curved this way, you go that way? Or?
If the curve is going to the right, you do it in the opposite cheek. You do it over here in the left cheek.
Okay.
If the curve is going to the left, then you go over to the right cheek. The curve goes both ways, which is what an S curve does. Well, you get both cheeks.
Now, do you press against the bone, or do you just press?
This particular point is right into the meat of the muscle. There's another point that Corey thought I meant, which is down on the sit bone. This is a different point.
Thank you.
Okay, this is up right in the middle of the meat, the meat of the bun there. Okay, Ian. What's that? Yeah. This, by the way, is the point that John did with the crowbar. So we also call it the crowbar point, I guess. I forgot to tell you this. This heart point right here, which is the intersection of the nipple line and the anterior axillary line, that's also known as the Lewis point. Some of you in other seminars may have heard me refer to it as the Lewis point. Now you've got to meet Lewis in person, so now you know why. Okay, why don't you show him the ischial tuberosity there?
Well, you get down below the buttock onto the bone there, onto the sit-down bone, as Corey said, and you push up towards the head.
You got to sneak under the cheek.
Mm-hmm. And it's the ischial tuberosity. Ischial tuberosity. And it's a bone.
Your sit bone.
If you feel it.
Okay, it is actually the bone, like when you're sitting like that, it's the bones that you're sitting on. Okay, so it's like the bottom of the pelvis.
Are you saying that when we have problems with that bone sitting down, or is it something with the spine?
No, it's just a reflex point for the curvature of the spine.
It's a reflex for a lot of things. The one in the butt will do a lot with the curvature. This will help. This will actually do a lot for the pelvis.
But what Sama was saying is it because there's a problem there? It's not because there's a problem there in that, like, there's nothing wrong with the sit-down bone.
There doesn't have to necessarily be anything right there, because it can do all sorts of stuff for the whole pelvis.
We call it a sit-down bone because it's what you sit on. But
my question has been, do you press the sit-down bone to correct a problem in the spine or a problem on the sit-down bone?
It will do a lot for the pelvis, and it will have effects on the legs, the spine, the whole bit, because you're dealing with the whole skeletal system there.
Yes, but usually you don't find an injury, a specific injury on that bone. I mean, it's pretty uncommon to find a specific injury right there on that sit bone. It's just more of a reflex point, Sama.
And it's sometimes very numb. Lots of numbness comes out of it.
It has been in the past also a point where we've got tremendous amounts of electricity out of people. What's the angle on this, Corey?
Tell me.
Straight up towards the head, basically. It's mainly just going straight superior, straight to the top of the body. So if you do it like that, you got to crouch a bit. Some people, get a thumb up in there, and get that one up there. But it's going straight, straight up. And as Corey said earlier, or as Linda said, you do really have to kind of get in underneath the bottom of the cheek there, because you're really trying to get right in on the on the bone there. Definitely make sure you introduce yourself first. Okay, is everybody clear on this point? Okay, any questions on this? Okay, back to the spine. You're sometimes going to have a situation that's called an anterior displacement. Want to talk about that, Linda?
That's when one of the vertebrae have instead of moving sideways, where you can feel it, it's dropped away, and it just feels like a hole as you're going down. That's the top of the spine, top of the back, and one drops down below it, and so that you actually, as you're coming along, feel a hole. You feel a hole there, and you actually put your elbow, when you're going in, you put your elbow right in on, or thumb. Yep. Right in on top of that.
So which vertebrae are you pressing on?
The one that's not there.
Right, the one that's sunk into the front. And what's the direction of pressure?
Straight down.
Straight down, which for most people totally violates common sense, right?
Yeah.
But it works. What will happen on that as if you're pressing down on that with a thumb? What will you experience during the session? What will you actually feel the bone do during the session?
It'll come up. Yeah, it'll come up to meet your finger, I guess, or it'll come up to meet the other vertebrae.
So you're pressing forward on the bone, towards the front of their body, and as you're doing that during the session, the bone's going to be actually going to be moving your thumb up, or moving your thumb back to the back of the body, because the vertebrae is going to come back into place there. If we were to check all the spines in the room here, we would certainly find a number of these here. Some would be fairly substantial, and some would be fairly minor, but it's a fairly common thing. You can do this with an elbow. You can do it with a thumb. It will depend on the individual. Show them up on the neck how we go about getting the coming in from the side and getting the points there. Just show show how you might have your hands in there and how you get some of the vertebrae up on the neck.
Sometimes you can have one person on each side and push on a calcification that might be coming. That's there. You check the spine first. Good. What else to say?
I find with the neck, most people find it hard, especially on a massage table. There's too much give there, and so I find it's much easier. Especially with big calcifications, to have them sitting up, and you just go straight in from the side or at the back.
Why don't you get somebody in a chair and show just how you do that?
Another way to get those on the neck, Corey, would be to have them lie on their back and come in around from the side, so that you're actually using the gravity to help to hold them.
We might have to turn around. You might have to hold it.
Okay, which side of her neck are you going to be pressing on?
Well, it's hard for the camera. I'll be pressing this way.
Okay, so what are you going to do with your other hand?
I'm going to support a head.
Okay, yeah.
I'm just going to support a head there. I'm going to put a head against my chest with my palm there, so that you can get some pressure in there towards the vertebrae. Because you need to support their head, otherwise you're going to be pushing the neck around everywhere.
You don't want them to have to tense their neck up to hold the pressure during their session. They should be able to relax. So you need to support their head either with your arm or your hand or your chest or something, so that they're not, they can relax and go into the pain and so forth. That's good. Just make sure the camera sees it and everybody can see what you're doing there.
Does that feel, Tessa?
It's sore.
Okay, really what you'll have to do, if you feel a calcification, like often people, especially on the first and second there, or the third, you can feel big ones, and I'm one of those. I've got a huge calcification there. You'll just need to find the most painful point, often straight in on a 45-degree angle, in towards the side there. But what will happen is you'll feel changes there in the calcification, so you may need to follow it around. And sometimes these can disappear quite quickly.
That's good. Okay. Any questions on the spine right now?
Do you need on the neck to work both sides of the vertebra at once?
Not necessarily. Sometimes it's a good idea, but you don't always have to. You see what's there. And again, it's better to do one thing well than to try to do a number of things and not do them so well. So you want to, if you can only get one, if you're only really able to do a good job on one, then do a very, very good job on that one. Wolf, I think, had a question. Okay. Okay, want to talk about that calf point?
You want to show the adrenal point on the calf? Okay. Whenever you see in someone's eye a dilated pupil that doesn't seem to react much to the light, or that remains pretty wide, a pupil, this indicates a severe adrenal stress or adrenal exhaustion. Oftentimes people will get that. Their adrenals may be working all right, but if they've been under a lot of stress or they haven't been getting much sleep, you'll notice it. But then there's some of us who will have it maybe just on a continual basis, where the pupil's very, very large compared to the way it should be in a reaction to light. It should get quite small. And so a really good point to hold for this is on the back of the calf, right in the muscle, which refluxes to the adrenal. It's quite painful, as some of you can attest. Sama. and we have really dramatic results with this too. You'll find that the pupil will go back to a normal size just after finishing off these points.
I often find it's easy to do this with the elbow as well, because there's a lot of pain in here, and to get the pressure.
Yeah, it's hard. Those muscles will often be, on people who have the adrenal exhaustion, those muscles will often be really, really tight. So the only way that you're going to be able to get in there and get to the reflex is with the elbow. Okay.
Occasionally I've noticed that you see some people have a very, very small pupil, opposite to the adrenal pupil. Can you comment on that?
I've noticed it, and I really don't know. I've speculated that it might be a hyperactivity, but I honestly do not know about that. You will find with the adrenal exhaustion, where you'll have the large pupil, you'll find some people that are like that pretty well all the time. There's people that have had a big pupil for 20 years, and it's always that way. There's other people where it kind of comes and goes. Sometimes they're all right, the pupil's more or less a normal size. Other times when they're under a lot of stress, they go back to having the big pupil, and it does fluctuate quite a bit depending on how they're doing at any given moment in their existence. But we have found on this particular set of points on the calves for the adrenals that we've had fantastic results with correcting that adrenal exhaustion. And I've seen a number of people who've had maybe 15, 20 years of huge pupil. One point holding session where they get this done on both sides, and they never have that problem again. Their adrenals really come right. So it's quite a fantastic point for this.
And what does it mean when the pupil pumps? When you look into people's eyes, it gets bigger and smaller then.
When the pupil, if the light is constant and the pupil is shrunk back down somewhat, and then it's not quite able to hold it, it's like it's vacillating. I've interpreted that as kind of an intermediate stage where the adrenals are not totally blown out, but they're really struggling, because you're not quite able to keep it down.
Yeah, when you see the adrenal stress in the pupil, if you look in the reflex point in the iris, you also likely find some indicating markations like a lesion, or could be just really dark fibers. I know before I had really severe adrenal stress and my pupils were always really, really dilated, and I had a total blowout, almost like a radius sclerosis, all the way from the pupil out to the limbus, the scirphrim, and that was just, the fibers were just really far back and dark. And after having some of these points held, that just, the fibers came right up. So.
Okay, show us the point.
It's in the middle of the leg.
You've got a muscle. You've got a muscle that comes down that's actually in two different strands, which is called the gastrocnemius, and it'll go down either side of the leg, and so you're coming up the middle of the calf, where you're basically in between the two halves of the gastrocnemius.
And always support your elbow with your other hand, because this is a really easy point to slip off.
Okay, now, you're in the middle of the leg, in between the two portions of the muscle. How far up the leg are you?
More than half, about 2/3.
It's going to vary a little bit from one person to the next. I find that it's typically, to me it seems like it's typically a bit below the thickest part of the leg from side to side. But it does vary. It does vary quite a bit from one. And you'll actually probably find that there might be a strip, going up the middle of the leg. There might be a strip a couple inches long where it'll be sore in that whole area. But you want to find the one spot that's absolutely the worst. Now, what's the angle?
45-degree angle. Pushing straight up towards the head. It's a 45-degree angle here, but sort of pushing straight up towards the head.
Yeah. So you're pressing basically to the front of the body and to the top of the body. To the front of the body and to the top of the body. In many instances, you may be able to do a good job with a thumb, but there'll be other instances where you just won't be able to get it done with the thumb, and it'll be, as Linda suggested, a real good idea to do it with an elbow. And very, very definitely underscore what you said about cupping your elbow, because it's not therapeutic pain if you slip around in this point and go, wailing across their calf. So try to keep relatively steady on it. Okay. You'll find there'll be a lot of things that will contribute to adrenal stress in people. One of the obvious symptoms that you'll get is about an hour from now, or probably anywhere in the next couple hours, you'll start to fade. You get that adrenal letdown sometime in the late afternoon. Yeah. And another thing that you'll find with people who have problems with the adrenals is they'll have a lot of trouble with the hot weather. They'll have a tremendous difficulty with the hot weather. They're really wilting. You get hot, humid type weather, and these people will have just no energy whatsoever. Does anybody know the reason for that? Brooke?
The adrenal points are unable to cool the body down. That's one of their main functions. Hey, guys.
How come you don't wave to me?
You got your shirt on. You got your shirt on, don't you see? I think it's got something to do with the sodium, potassium, and the function of the adrenals there, and the way that it cools the body down. I think Louis Cravan did a lot of research into that with the guys that were working in the desert, which was really interesting.
Carol?
Here's Carol.
Often when there's adrenal problems, there's low blood pressure, and when there's heat and low blood pressure, people tend to fade. Vasodilation with the heat, and the blood pressure will go even lower.
Yeah, this is true. One of the main things you're looking at, which is what Brooke's referring to, is that when you have your biological transmutations, which we've talked about from time to time, one of the transmutations that you'll have in the body is the transmutation of sodium into potassium. Sodium into potassium. This is an endothermic reaction which has the effect of cooling the body down. And this particular transmutation of sodium into potassium is dependent. See, all biological transmutations are dependent upon specific hormones from the endocrine glands. And the hormone that will trigger the transmutation of your sodium into potassium is a hormone by the name of aldosterone. I'm going to write that up there. ALDO, STERONE, ALDO, STERONE. The aldosterone will be secreted by the adrenal glands. So one of the things here is if your adrenals are shot so that you're not secreting the aldosterone, this is going to make it more difficult for you to perform the transmutation of the sodium into the potassium, which is one of the ways that the body is going to cool itself. And what Louis Kervran discovered was that he studied the workers on the oil platforms out in the desert in the Middle East, and he found that if you did some calculations on basically if you looked at the amount of if you looked at body temperature and you looked at the temperature that they were working in, whether it's like 120 degrees Fahrenheit in the shade and that sort of thing. What's that? If his adrenals are going. Basically, what Kervran showed was that it was a physical impossibility for their body temperature to be kept down to what it ought to be through evaporative cooling. There was no way they could be out there in 120 degree heat all day and actually keep the body temperature down just by the amount of cooling you'd get from sweating and having that evaporate. So what he did was he measured in a number of volunteers the total input of things into their body in terms of the chemical elements, in terms of their food and their water and everything. And then he measured what came out of their body in terms of the sweat, the urine, and the feces. And most everything added up pretty well, except for the really obvious thing was there was huge amounts of sodium going in and not a whole lot coming out. And there was not much potassium going in, relatively speaking, and there was massive amounts of potassium coming out. And after that, he was then able to demonstrate in some of the hospitals in Paris that you did actually have this biological transmutation of sodium into potassium. It's actually sodium plus oxygen will make your potassium. And this is an endothermic reaction because you're going from simple to complex. And that type of reaction is going to require the input of energy, which the body is going to get from where? From the surrounding environment. So the net result of that is that you're pulling energy in, and that actually has the result of cooling the body down because you're essentially using up or converting a lot of that excess thermal energy around you. And this is why you get the cooling. This is what we've been talking about all along in class. I mean, this is where you put your hands on somebody on the table and they're ice cold. It's an endothermic reaction. You go the opposite way where the complex is broken back down into simple, all that heat's thrown off, and what do you feel then? This is where you get the burning. This is like Alan standing up here the first week, and we were sweating standing next to him because he was putting out all the heat as he went through the exothermic reaction. Okay? Everybody clear on where to find this point? Okay. You want to show the spinal reflex on the bottoms of the feet? Okay. Where's the spinal reflex? Can we maybe swing the table around along the side of the foot, right along in here. Okay, show the spinal reflex. Okay, have him. You can do it that way, but have him flip over. Either side there.
It's right on the inside.
Here.
Okay, right along the edge of the foot there where you find the spine in most of your charts. Right along like that. Okay. What you're going to find is that you can do some wonderful work on a person's spine along there. What you want to do is get there. You all see how we got his leg out to the side like that? So it's bent so you can get in here like this. Okay? Now if the person's fairly flexible and the knee will go down like that to where it's well supported, you're all set. In some people's case where you either have knee problems or there's a lot of tension in here, you may need to get a pillow or something to support the knee because you don't want to hurt them in this area. But if there's no problem with them just lying like that, what you're going to do is you're going to get in here with the elbow like this, and you'll get right in on the spine like that. You probably want to kind of cup the foot like this, so you can get right in here like this. How's that? Okay, and you just play around and you work the different areas in the spine along the foot there. You probably got more stuff down the low back right in that area. Now, in some people's case, you'll be able to do a very good job just with a thumb along in there. But most people, it's probably going to take an elbow, and you get just this kind of angle like that I'm showing you. Okay? Cup the foot like that, and get in there right like that. So, Corey or Linda, why don't you show that on this side, and then flick around and show it on the other so everybody can get a good look at what you're doing?
Sorry? Well, Doug's already explained it. So we'll just go through it again. So cup the foot there. And you want to get, you'll have to find the place that's got the pain. Anyway, you can do it when they're lying on their back and crunch the whole lot by just sort of really putting your spine the whole way. But you'll just want to find a good sore spot and just go straight in there. Anywhere really up that whole spot there. Sometimes I've found that you can get one really good spot which you can dig in much deeper when you can get in there with the thumb, where you can't actually get a good spot with the elbow. So I've found that you can be more specific when you go in there with the thumb. Well, when you're dealing with the toe, the join here is the neck area. So quite a lot, like, for example, I have my problems in the spine are in the neck area, and so across the join there I have a lot of pain. So let's see as far as reflexology goes, when I have pain in the neck, you just sort of need to massage in there.
Yes, right down here to the top of the heel, I think, is where it finishes.
But as I was saying, you can get quite a lot of points when you go in there and you can find some pain, but sometimes I find it quite a lot easier, if you've got strong thumbs, to get one good painful spot in there that really gets them.
So say you look in the eye and you find a black bush in the neck area, and you've been through the other points, you've done the pancreas and their own enzymes, their own program and everything. Would it be wise to do the reflex point on the foot for the neck?
I'd really want to stick with the endocrine stuff and really work through that for quite a while. If we're still dealing with a black bush where we've got the potential for disaster there, I don't think I'd want to work on the reflex stuff just yet. I'd really want to stick with the STOs and the endocrine points and really get that under control, and wait till we see the black bush nub off and lighten up in color. Once we get to that point, then maybe it might be wise to start in the feet, but we'll eventually get up and do the work right on the neck. But you just want to be careful and make sure that you've got things well contained before you mess with it.
In reflexology, this is supposed to be the spine running like this. And when we are holding, I'm just wondering, because in reflexology, this is supposed to be the spine running at this edge, going like this. So I was just wondering whether when we are trying to get the spinal point by going inside here, are we trying to have contact with the bone or what?
You just work all along the inside part of the foot there, and you get the whole back area, spine and all in through there.
How do you decide whether you work on the left foot or on the right foot?
You could do either, but I would see which one hurt the most. Well, they're both. The spine's going to be on either foot, but as to which foot would be more effective, see which one hurts the most. See what if you get more pain on one than the other, that's the one to that would be the one to work on.
I think probably what Wolf is trying to get across is if you've got an S or a curvature in the spine, say that, this is the spine and it goes this way, is it wise to hold on, say, the right foot? You know what I mean? Like on the spine, that you would hold on that side, that it goes most outwards?
I don't really know, Tana. I would probably go on which one hurt the most. But there may be some rhyme or reason to that, but it's nothing I've ever really noticed.
So it's not like one side of the foot, or one foot goes to one side of the spine and the other foot aligns to the other?
It probably does to some extent, but bottom line, I'd probably just find the one that hurt the most and keep it simple there. There may be some pattern there with curvatures as to which foot to go on, but I don't, it's nothing I've ever noticed. Has anybody here ever noticed a pattern on that? Okay. I think the next thing I'd like to have us go over, and we're going to break up into groups for this, is I want to spend some time making sure we're all very, very clear on the STOs and very, very clear on the anterior cervicals, or cervicals, as some of us say. And how many people do we have that have, I think we got about 20 people that have gone through the instructor's courses here, somewhere in that ballpark. So what we'll probably have is we'll get those people up and have them each, have about 4 or 5 people with each one of them, and we'll go over this. John?
I've just got a question about the spine. There are a lot of people out there who've got multiple problems with their spine. They've got a kyphosis, a scoliosis, anterior displacement, and adrenal letdown, at least. How do you know where to begin, and if there's a particular order to do them in?
There's a lot of different ways of looking at it, John. One perspective is,
well, you begin at the top and work your way down.
Sometimes that doesn't work, and sometimes you have to go to some other areas. I'd say overall, beginning at the top and working down is a pretty good way of going about it. But sometimes it seems to work other ways. Sometimes there's something so severe lower down that maybe that needs to get corrected before you're going to get anything else. So it may vary from one to the next. An analogy John's used sometimes is like, if you're picking the apples off a tree, which one do you pick first? Sometimes you just pick an apple, just whatever's closest. And so there's not necessarily a completely logical way to go about the spine. And it may, it's pretty unlikely that a person with multiple spinal problems is going to have everything come right in one session anyway. So you just try to, try some things, and if, get whatever results you can, go on to something else, and experiment, because we're all very, very unique, highly individual, and what works spectacularly on one person might not be the most appropriate thing for someone else. So you got to be a little bit flexible about how you go about it here.
And I gather the body actually protects itself in the way that it heals itself. Is that what happens? So if there's an anterior displacement that might be severe, it's not going to. If you did something else before it, it's not going to damage the spinal cord or anything, because the body knows exactly what's happening with it. So
shouldn't have any problem there, John. Okay, I think what we might want to do is have Corey and Linda demonstrate the STOs and the interior cervicals and describe exactly what you're doing. And then what we'll do is we'll break up into groups with the people that have gone through the instructor's courses before. We'll get into groups of about 4 or 5 people each, and we'll go over those in our groups. Okay, so start with the STO and tell people exactly what you're doing here. You want the table to the side, Sakara?
Okay, you'll want to be using your middle fingers. They're the ones that you get the best pressure on the STO. Now, what you can do is you can find on your own head there, if you just let your head fall back, you just want to be just below there, just below the occipital bone, and the STO, sternocleidomastoid, trapezius, and occiput. That's what the STO stands for. So what the pressure's going to be inwards, and you're going to be going inwards, upwards and towards the head. So you're sort of pointing towards the middle of the head with your fingers. So you're going to be going inwards, upwards, and towards the centre of his head there.
Okay, and where exactly are you in relation to the skull?
Okay, you're just below the skull. You're pressing up towards it. You're not quite onto the bone, onto the occiput. You're just up in there. With some people it's hard, but with a lot of people you'll find the spot very easily because it's framed by the muscles there in the neck. So you just slip straight in there, and you push up towards the occiput.
Okay. Now, how far towards the back of the neck are you? How far away from the ear are you?
How far from there? That's a good shot there. I don't know how to describe. You're about, say, what's that? 10 centimetres from the ear down towards the point there.
More towards the spine.
Yeah. You're with the person lying face up like this. You're way down to the back. You're way down to the back, and probably in the STOs, the two most common mistakes are either getting too far towards the front of the body or too far down, too far towards the feet. You really got to get way in underneath there. And it's a very, very easy point to slide on. Very easy point to slide on.
Sit up. If you just want to, you can find it there sometimes on people if you're sitting up. It'll be just in there. I mean, often it's strange. When I used to get headaches, that would be one of the points that would be quite a lot. I don't know why that would be. I started to think, well, maybe that's because it produced a bit of numbness, and so the headache went away. But it was quite good. You can feel it there, so you just go straight in there, on either side there.
Okay. Why don't you have them get down again and just kind of walk us through exactly how you'd find it and plug in on him there, and then we're going to have Linda do the same thing so you get it from a different perspective here.
Okay. So you want to find this, that's the sternocleidomastoid here on the side here. This one. So you find that one and you'll go underneath that one. And then you feel the trapezius there at the back along the spine. So you just get in there between those two muscles. So you work your way in there, and so you'll be pushing in towards the spine. You'll be pushing in towards the spine there. Then you'll be pushing up towards the front of the neck, and then you'll be pushing up towards the skull.
Okay, so you're basically going right up to the center of the brain there. Okay, Linda?
So your fingers will look like that. You'll be pushing up that way.
It's quite simple. If you think of it, there's quite a furrow between the two muscles, and if you come up there, between those two.
Okay, get further down around the back there. I think if you just have him have him keep his head in the position he's going to be in anyways, and just get way down around the back there, way down below.
You can feel the bottom, the base of the skull, sort of about on the second joint of your finger, before you actually get into to pull it up.
Okay, come down more to the back and more to the top. Like, go further down this way, more to the back of the body, way down under there to that hollow back at the base of the skull there. Like, get around to almost to the back and get that base of the skull there. There we go.
A little better.
Okay, I'm in there right below the skull, and you can feel with your fingers on each side, you can feel the muscles. They bulge out because you're pushing in there.
It's not on the skull, right?
No, it's below it.
So basically you find that little hollow down by the base of the skull, and you'll be just off the base of the skull.
Do you want to check?
Check her out there.
You pull your fingers in between the two muscles that furrow and take it up to the base of the skull, and then bring it down a little bit to where you'll find the hollow.
Then it's a matter of pulling up, and the whole pressure then, the force is going up towards the middle of the head.
The angle is very important, and don't underestimate this point, because if it's not done properly, you won't get the desired results. If you're off a little bit, you won't get the desired results, and it's a bit tricky. You need to really be intuitive about it.
Okay, let's demonstrate the anterior cervicals. Why don't you walk us through that as well? What are some of the things that the anterior cervicals or cervicals are specifically good for? Okay, multiple sclerosis would be something to be good for. Anything else? Okay, short leg, anatomically short leg. Okay, brain problems. Anything else? Very, very good for strokes. Very good for anybody with a stroke. Neurological problems of any sort. Okay. Any type of neurological problem, strokes, short legs, multiple sclerosis. They're really very good for all sorts of different things. Carol? For the anterior cervicals? Oh, okay, never heard that. Carol is saying that the anterior cervicals will be very good for sacroiliac separations, which I've not heard before. Sounds good? Straight from John. Okay, so Corey or Linda, one of you guys tell us what you're doing there.
Now,
show us the hand position. Be very, very explicit on this.
Now, John says the best thing to do here is to have them on the floor and to be lying behind their head, which is very difficult, but you do tend to get the best angle. But what you need to do here is you need to pick up the whole muscle. You want to get your fingers in under there and make sure you get that muscle out of the way and all the arteries up the side of the neck there as well. And you'll want to be moving your fingers up there, and then you'll want to be twisting and pushing down onto the anterior side of the spine.
It would be almost impossible to do it with the face down. I wouldn't want to try.
You've got to get good pressure onto the other side of the spine.
You have to move the muscles up out of the way, and if you try to do it from the other angle, it wouldn't work.
Ow. I use both.
You can get it. You can get this. You have to really rotate on the one finger, but you can, once you get in there, you can sometimes use 2 or 3 fingers on either side.
You see the motion that Corey's using. He's lifting up, but he's doing that to get the muscles out of the way, and then he's rotating. He's not actually twisting his skin around. He's just rotating his fingers so that he can keep his fingers in there and then place them on top of the cervicals or cervicals.
Very painful point.
If you think about the spinal column, if you imagine it running, say in this direction, like imagine we got a person lying down with their feet this way and the head back this way and face up. So we think of their spinal column as running like this in this direction. Think of 12 o'clock as being towards the front of their body and 6 o'clock as being towards the back of the body. We're moving our fingers up around so that we're getting up to maybe 10 and 2 or even 10:30 and 1:30. In other words, we're way around to the front of the spine. We're not coming in from the back or even the side, 9 and 3. We're past that to where we're actually, hold this for a second. I'm not coming in on the spine like this or even like this. I'm coming in like this. I'm actually coming around from the front of the vertebrae. And the thing, in order to do that safely, you got to scoop the sternocleidomastoid muscle up from either side and really be under the muscle, like deep to the muscle. Because as long as you do that, then all of this stuff in here, like the different, your trachea and your esophagus and your all your other, brittle parts and so forth that are in here, they're going to be protected because they're going to basically kind of slide up, out of the way in between the muscles. And as long as you stay deep to the muscles there, you're not going to hurt the person. There's more than one point here because you're really working along a large segment of the cervical spine. I don't think you're going to get all the way to the top or all the way to the bottom, but you're going to work through at least 3 or 4 different vertebrae, down through the mid cervicals there. So you've got many, many, many different spots that you can hit there. Some will be incredibly painful, and some will be just not quite incredibly painful. So you want to get you want to go with the best spots. It'd be better to do one spot on either side and really get it right. But on this one, it's actually often very, very possible to get 2 or 3 spots on either side and do a great job on all of them simultaneously. So you just work through there and dissolve the calcifications. Now, why don't you show us that again one more time?
Okay, so we're going to grab the sternocleidomastoid there and lift it up. So you'll have your fingers coming in like that, and just grab them there underneath your fingers, and just slip your fingers up, and you'll feel them go around the spine, and then you'll want to turn them and just go in there on top of the spine. And then you just push straight down.
Okay, Linda, you want to show us as well? Could be worse, Chris. I could just have you stay there and have everybody in the class find it. That's what they did to me last year.
You were in healing crisis for the rest of the day.
So you come in and you lift.
Okay, one suggestion in starting out on this. When you first put your hands there, it's really, really helpful if you can have your palms lower than where your fingertips are. Mm-hmm. Start off in this position, not this position.
It's also very helpful to have all your fingernails clipped.
Are yours
which I
not?
haven't. No.
Okay, well, let me do this then.
Oh, no.
Just relax. You'll be all right. Okay. So what you want to do, you notice the hand position. I'm going to start with my hands like this, where my palms are down, the backs of my hands are down on the table. I'm not trying to scoop the muscles up like this, because they're just going to slip right past me if I try to scoop them up like that. I'll never be able to keep under them like this. So I got my hands like this, and I'm going to get all my fingers in there like this. I'm going to get in under the muscles. And the thing about it is you're more likely to hurt the person doing this if you're too delicate about it. Because if you're too delicate, that's when the muscle's going to slip past you and you're going to be in on the person's throat. So you actually really have to be quite vigorous about this and really, really use a good amount of force so that you're able to stay deep to this muscle. So I'm going to get my hands right in here like this. I'm going to scoop up like that. On the fingernail side, where my nails are quite short here, on the fingernail side, I've got good contact with right through some of these deeper muscles. I've got good contact right in under the vertebrae there. You feel that? I'm scooping up like this. Now I'm pushing pretty hard, right? I'm scooping up like that, and that muscle's, I'm totally underneath that muscle. I'm deep to that muscle. Once I get it way scooped up like that, I'm going to get all my pressure on that middle finger so it's like a pivot, and watch the way the hands move back towards me like this. You all see that? I'm going to rotate back on the middle fingers. Oh, lost that one. Okay, get up there like that. I rotate back on the middle fingers. Then once I'm in there, I can slide some other fingers in there and get some of these spots there. How's that? You feel those ones right there? Now if I come up a little higher, you got a real good one right there. And you got a doozy of a one right there. Actually, that's your best one right there, though, huh? Those, that, and that. But you'll feel all sorts of good little spots there. I could get down lower here and get those. And see how I can get in there and get about 2 or 3 on either side, Chris? Okay, now I may be better off than you just going there and there, eh? Yeah? Yeah. But bottom line is I'm way up underneath here, and you'll notice that where the muscles are, they've moved all the way around towards the front. My angle is probably, again, like I'm at 10:30 and 1:30. I mean, I'm really coming down about like this on the vertebrae, because I got my fingers hooked around there. Okay? How are you doing there? Very, very good points, but you're not going to get those points right unless you really keep some good pressure up just to get in there in the first place. If you're too delicate about it, you're just going to slip right over the muscle, and that's when you're going to end up pressing on some of the soft bits in here where you could actually do some damage. So you got to be pretty vigorous to get in there. There any? Are we rolling? Okay, we are going over the bladder lift here. Okay, Elizabeth asked too. We'll get them both. Okay, could we get a? Well, let's fine. That table will stay there. We got 2. A lot of people will have problems in the lower abdomen, where basically everything is heading south. Gravity being what it is, and all you got a lot of stuff kind of heading down under there. And there's a lot of things that will tie in here. A lot of people will have prolapsed transverse colons, and of course, if your transverse colon's prolapsed, if it's sagging down, then of course it's going to push everything underneath it down, and you're going to have problems on the lower part of the bowel. You're going to have problems in the small intestine, the bladder, the reproductive organs. And so basically a lot of people here are going to have situations where everything's kind of heading down that way. And even people that are fairly on the slender side will often have a bit of a roll right here. That's mainly just because all of their internal organs are not where they're supposed to be. They've all kind of moved down like that. Does this ring any bells? Anybody here? Okay. We got a few. One of the situations that you'll find with a lot of people, particularly with a lot of women, is there'll be pressure, mechanical pressure exerted on the bladder, and so you'll find a lot of people, again, particularly women, will have a little bit of incontinence as a result of this, where if they sneeze, they'll lose a little bit, or if they jump, they'll lose a little bit. The rebounder is out of the question. And anybody in this boat? Anybody here? Don't raise your hand if you don't want to, but okay. Anybody know anybody who has this situation? Okay, that's better. At any rate, what we have here is a very, very simple technique it's called a bladder lift, but basically what it's doing is it's moving everything that you got back up where it's supposed to be, and it's quite an effective thing. You can actually see some pretty outstanding results, even in 5 or 10 minutes. Although it's really a good idea sometime along the way to really take the time and do a good lengthy bladder lift where you're really burning through all the adhesions there. Now, Janine, I think, has a story about lifting bladders. So, or is it a blas?
I think some of these days it's time to learn some Dutch. So I start. The bladder is the blaas. What? Oh yeah. Repeat it now. All together. Blaas. No more. Blaas. Yeah. Okay. Brooke, say it again. Blaas. Yeah. Okay. So be serious a little bit here now. No, there was a lady who had in the past lots of bladder infections, and so also, like she's losing easily. She dribbles. Okay, that's the word. Okay, she dribbles. And I did one bladder lift, but she had lots of lumps, especially on the left side. So we've been working that out. And a few days later, she starts getting infections again. She took lots of Schweitzer and O7, so oxygen, and built up more the minerals. And that went on for about another month, but now she's completely healed. So that was a good experience there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, all the pain that she had there, because I just touched it a little bit, I couldn't go deep in it. It was all gone after that 1 month.
Okay, anybody that's ever had any abdominal surgery, women who've had, cesarean births or whatnot, this is going to create a great amount of scar tissue and adhesions in this part of the body, which is going to increase the pressure that you're going to have there. If anybody has any problems with the transverse colon, that's going to put weight on all these organs. In reference to the iris of the eye, if you find problems in the transverse colon or radii sceleris in the transverse colon in women, very often they will also have problems with the reproductive, particularly during their cycles, a lot of cramps or even headaches that go along with that. You remember, it's a 180-degree reflex, transverse colon and reproductive. And I've seen this time and time and time again with women. Particularly after a woman's had a child, everything kind of shifts around in there. The muscles don't go quite back where they were before, and so there's a shift. So this bladder lift I've found has been tremendous for women.
What we're going to do is kind of go over the technique and demonstrate it. We're going to work on Elizabeth now. Carol, can you stand up for a second? I have to see what you're wearing here. Is that one piece there? Okay. If you want to, because Mag suggested that you might want to get one, but you're going to need to go back and change because we'll be doing a skirt lift if we do it on you. So you might want to, like something where you got a separate top and bottom, so that we can get in there in the middle. So you might want to zip off and get that, so we can work on you as well.
I just want to share from my experience. After I had a surgery, I had a lot of adhesions, and it wasn't until I was able to work those out that I actually was able to get pregnant again. So the adhesions can, be blocking the whole flow of the body in that area in many different ways. So if you have people with infertility problems, this may be, part of the answer.
Okay, Elizabeth, why don't you come on up here, and Janine's going to lift your blouse here. What's that? I'll describe how we're doing it here. A couple of things I'll mention here. The amount of pressure that you're using for this is not it's not a huge amount of pressure. It's a fairly moderate pressure. You don't do this on just anyone. You want the person to have fairly good nerve supply. You don't want to be messing around with somebody that might have cancer in there, because you're going to be breaking things up and possibly killing the person in the process if you're causing tumors to break apart and spread. So this is not a technique that you're going to do on just anyone. You want to be very, very cautious here in the abdomen. Read the eyes, check out what's going on in there, and do make sure that this is something that you can do. What I'm going to do is just kind of describe this, and Janine's going to kind of show you what we're doing here. And this is also something that you can go. What we're going to do after, we're going to go to about 6 o'clock now and have dinner. When we come back from dinner, what you'll all be doing is going back into the same groups that you've just been in. And I want you to complete STO and anterior cervicals if you didn't already. But what I'd like you to do is go over the other points that we went over this morning in your groups. Just make sure that everybody really knows where all the points in the feet are: the triple axis clavicle, heart, thymus, the spinal points, the butt point, and these sorts of things. The points that we went over. Just make sure that everybody's pretty comfortable defining them in the group and that they're able to do that. Certainly, if you have time, you might want to do bladder lifts. I would recommend somewhere along the line, if we have another evening where we get done early or anything like that, some of you might want to get together and just trade off bladder lifts with somebody else. You can get some pretty good results even in 5 or 10 minutes, but it's nice to go longer and do a real thorough job on it. Yeah. What's that? Oh yeah, it will work good on men. It's a good one. I like to say it's a cheap date. No, but it is a good one to do with. You can really get a lot of results there, because men and women alike. Everybody's subject to gravity. Everybody's got stuff sagging down there. Everybody's got adhesions. Everybody's got all sorts of yeah.
You don't have the nerve supply always to all the organs, so you're not getting the nutrients and not maintaining their health, so they're all over the place.
So basically, this is something that would be beneficial for practically everybody. So what you need to do here, Janine, introduce yourself. And you're going to be doing this right on the skin. So what you do? Oh, are you a one-piece thing here, Elizabeth? Oh, okay. What you're going to need to do is pull that down quite a ways, because you really got to get to where you're right at the top of the pubic bone there. Okay. First thing that you want to find is going to be the top of the pubic bone. And as I suggested earlier, start high and work your way down. Okay, now, Janine's going to get at the top of the pubic bone. If you see the hand, pull your hands up off her body and show everybody where your hands are cupped and like that. Show everybody the hand position. Get them up and just kind of keep them in the same position. Just come straight up. Okay, now just pull your hands straight up into the air so they can see just the positioning. Okay? That's about the right position there, because you're going to use 4 fingers on each hand to do this. And where you're going to be is the fingernail side of her fingers to start is going to be right against the top of the pubic bone. So she's not pressing on the front of the pubic bone, but she's starting right against the top of the pubic bone there. Do you all understand? Okay? So you're quite close to the pubic bone there. You're right on the skin. Now, what Janine's going to do with her fingers is very, very simple here. She's going to work her fingers down towards the back of Elizabeth's body, where she's going to do this with a side-to-side motion. Okay, she's going back and forth across side to side like this. And what she's doing is she's gradually, as she goes side to side, she's gradually working her fingers further down towards the back. Now, what Janine's going to feel as she does this is she may feel a number of adhesions in the area. Like I said, you'll get some pretty good results just doing this for a few minutes, but it's well worth your time if you really want to be thorough about it. Whenever you get a good adhesion there or a good sore spot, you can actually just hold your hand still right on that point and hold it like a point and burn through that adhesion. And then you go on to the next one and the next one and the next one. So it would be quite possible to spend 4 or 5 hours doing a bladder lift where you would burn out every single adhesion, and you'd see some miraculous results if you took that much time. But even just in a few minutes, you'll see something. So she's going to go back and forth, from side to side there, and work her way down. Now, let us know, Janine, when you get to the back there. Can somebody? And you want to be the Mr. Mike there, Ian? So tell us what you're doing there, Janine, and what you're feeling.
I don't feel any knots, so I'm there.
Okay. What she's doing is she's going all the way. Now down here, if you're looking at the wings of the ilium here, they're not where you're starting down at the just above the pubic bone. That's not that far. That's not that much of a distance from side to side right there. So she doesn't have a lot of, she can't go that far from side to side here, but she is going all the way out as far as she can between the wings of the ilium there. Okay. When she's got all the way into the back there, this is what she's going to do, and this is important that you know exactly what she's doing here. She's going to relax the pressure on her fingers and come back out. Okay? She's going to then take her fingers and jump up on the skin, release where she is and move up about 1 inch, a couple centimeters on the skin. Okay? Then what she's going to do is she's going to get enough pressure there so that she can pull the skin with her, and she's going to pull that skin back to the top of the pubic bone. Okay? So what she did is she released the pressure where she started. She jumped up on the skin about 1 inch or a few centimeters. Then she's going to push the skin back like that, like fold the skin back towards the top of the pubic bone. Okay? Y'all understand that? And then she's going to, once she's back there, she's going to do the same thing again, where she's going to go side to side and work her way into the back. So tell us what you're feeling there. Tell us if you get any good sore ones.
It's really loose. Yeah.
Okay. So just take a minute or two and work your way in there, and you'll notice that as you come up further, you'll be able to go a little bit wider there. What's that? Yes, it would be best to have an empty bladder for this. Okay, how are we doing there, Janine? Yeah. Oh, yeah, let's hear what Elizabeth says.
When she gets to my right side, I can feel a little bit of resistance. I'm not sure if it's an organ or...
Yeah.
It's more tight on my right side. Just there, yeah. Is that an organ? Muscles.
It's muscles there.
Yeah. So sit-ups you did.
When you come up the second time and you pull the skin back to the pubic bone, how can you be going further each side if you just at this? I don't understand that, how you can be going further each side, because you're still down at the pubic bone. It'd be the same width, wouldn't it?
You're correct. This time right here, we're still at the pubic bone, but further on, we won't, see what Janine will do here. Are you pretty well to the back, or you got a little bit more to do? So what Janine's going to do now is she's going to release the fingers again. She's going to hop up another inch on the skin, or a couple centimeters, somewhere in that ballpark, and she's going to bend it back down. Now, do you make it all the way to the top of the pubic bone, or not quite? The second time here. Okay, she's not quite making it to the top of the pubic bone anymore, so she's going to have a little bit more side to side to go. She's going to now, move side to side and move the fingers back. You can also, if you want to, you can have a little bit of this sort of motion on the fingers. A little bit of up and down motion is fine. But you're primarily, the thing to realize is you're not really pushing the organs up. That's not what this is about. You're really primarily just releasing the adhesions. And by getting rid of all the adhesions, the organs are going to end up going back where they're supposed to be. Now, what Janine's going to do here is she's going to repeat this probably about 4 or 5 times, each time coming up about an inch or so. Usually after about the second, hop up, she's not going to make it back to the pubic bone. So all she's going to do is just bend the skin down as far as she can. And once she's done this about 4 or 5 times or so, she's going to get up to where she's maybe an inch or so below the navel or the belly button. And that's about the highest you're going to go on this. So you'll probably hop up maybe 4 times, something like that. What are you feeling there, Elizabeth?
Comfortable pressure.
You don't feel any pain or any... Okay. It's like just a tight muscle there.
Okay. You up to the top there? Okay, Carol, why don't you come on up over on this table? Okay, we got a question there. Esther, you want to...
When you go up and go back down, do you go wider? Do you start in the centre then come wider to do the whole width of the abdomen, or...?
You keep your hands together. As you're coming up, you're going to keep your hands together, and you're going to move all the way out as far as you can to either side, all the way out to the wings of the ilium.
So you just do a seesaw motion as you come up?
Yes, you're going to go back and forth, and what you'll find is that there'll be certain spots that'll be much more sore than others, and those are the ones that you work on a bit more.
So you cover the width of the whole abdomen,
yes.
And you start at the bottom and work your way
yes,
to the top?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, boss.
All righty. Okay, go once more. How close are you to the belly button? Come up one more time. You're basically going to stop when you get maybe about a couple inches below the belly button. You'll find that you won't really be able to get in real deep once you get up into that area anyways. Things will be quite a bit firmer there. Donna?
Is this something one can do for themselves?
It is definitely possible to do a bladder lift on oneself. You don't quite have the leverage. And one of the difficulties with doing the bladder lift on yourself is that as you lie on your back and you put your hands up like this, it does tend to tense up the stomach muscles a little bit. So it's certainly possible to do this on yourself, and I'd strongly recommend it. But if you have the option of having somebody else do it, I think that's probably better, because it's going to be easier for you to relax with somebody else. Well, hopefully easier for you to relax with somebody else doing it on you.
Can you do this on a pregnant woman or?
I would absolutely, that's a very good question. I would absolutely not under any circumstances do this on a pregnant woman. You don't want to you don't want to mess with the area at all on a pregnant woman. That would be a very bad idea. With large fibroids, I would say you'd be better off getting the person to the point where you could do the direct point holding on the fibroids and get those melted away first before you get in there and do this. I think that would be a better situation there.
I have a bladder lift. Well, it's actually, I call it the large intestine lift. I spent 2 months before coming here and with a guy up in Canada who is a colon therapist and an applied kinesiologist. And to answer your question, Keith, we went from 10 o'clock in the morning to 8, sometimes 9, sometimes 10 o'clock at night, and every single person who came through there had a prolapsed transverse colon, regardless of what showed up in the eye. The only difference is how far down it might be. So everybody has this problem, and everybody would benefit from this. And I do have some energy techniques that are very simple you can do on yourself, and I'd be glad to show them too. That way anybody can do them with tumors or whatever. Everybody needs to get their large intestine lifted.
Thank you. Okay, come on up, tape change.